It's coming. I got a river trip in a month, so it better get better.
Yeah.
I can use this.
Nice, yeah.
But it's not broken.
Those things can be battery life, a little bit if it's gonna happen. I'm sure people.
That's right. That's right.
You know what that is?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's where I did it.
Man, give it time to heal.
Yeah.
Just trust me. I've got arthritis as well for those.
Ah,
It gets me. If
And I broke one of these
here.
years ago. I broke one of. I don't know which one. I can't remember which one.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently it's not too bad. But,
Then later.
I broke the tip fib.
You get, blowback is.
That's a
Tip fib. Radius ulnar. But I was young and I don't know which one it is, so I don't have one. Yep, this could be more.
Why? I didn't.
That's how I've been at Belleville. When I keep using Anderson.
Yeah, just get better.
Video, so.
Muted. Go ahead.
Oh, I've been talking. So our challenge is that we don't have video in the conference room. And so we're been trying to fix that, but we may just move ahead with only audio. I did see Tanya for a bit pop up with video. I don't know. If that is gone away now.
We did this.
Yeah, no. It used to be the way it was. Yep. And Tanya just came back on. So apparently
yeah.
audio.
And
the
I can
video
hear you
will work
now,
on your
so-
end.
That's good.
So it may just be video. So if you guys don't mind looking at the,
It's fine.
totally far away shot of us where you don't see anything anyways, that would be, we could proceed. On
Yeah,
the new-
I'd recommend Macy not work because she'd have to just unplug everything and it could mess up the meeting as a whole. So I think we just go without video tonight.
Yeah. Cool. All right, then we're unanimous. So, hello. And it's Tuesday, August 15th, 2023. It's 7:07. And we are starting tonight's BOT meeting. Macy, when you're ready, take the roll.
Mayor Billy,
I'm here.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahone,
Here.
Trustee Corvalon,
Here.
Trustee Mountain.
Here.
Trustee Severs
Here.
and Trustee Sterling.
Here.
Thank you. And then I would like to note for the record that Trustee Coombs Ismail is absent this evening.
Thanks, Macy. Appreciate it. So the first thing on our agenda, as usual, is the consent agenda for the day, and it's 3 items are on tonight's consent agenda: approval of today's or the warrants as of today, approval of our BOT meetings from from 2 weeks ago, August 1st, and the Big Springs Egress Professional Services Agreement with JVA. So I have one question for Miranda, probably. Do I have to recuse myself since I wasn't here because of the minutes?
No, as long as you took a chance to review them, you can vote or you can abstain, your choice.
Okay, thanks. Any more questions or needs clarifying questions for, I guess mostly Miranda on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second from Tom. I assume no discussion, so Macy?
Mayor Pro Tem Mahone,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes. Yes.
and Trustee Mountain.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have one written, and we'll have time for folks to give public comments live here, but one written public comment on a non-agenda item from Dr. James Navratil. Sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Just talking about a speed limit change going up Big Springs Drive, an increase. So that is our one public comment. Is there anyone else? I'll start with you in the room. Anyone else here want to make a public comment? How about folks online? Public comment on non-agenda items? Hearing none, we will go ahead and move into staff reports.
So the staff reports are in your packet and the hope is that you reviewed them all and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
I do. I have a couple questions. First, just pointing out that another $7,000 in year-to-date interest earned with our Colorado Safe money, 1.5 million that we stashed away. So that's cool. Miranda, are we starting to get submissions rolled in for the Broncos money, or is that it's still ongoing? I know, but any highlights to share in terms of like the types of programs people are asking for?
No highlights, just because they're not coming to me. The Karina, who is our administrative assistant, she's gathering the submissions and I'm not sure if she's received any. The plan is to just hold them all though until September 1st. Then we will distribute them to the group we're working with and we'll discuss the results mid-September.
Okay, cool. And I don't see Leah on, so I don't have that one. And then just a small detail. Did we write the thing for the dedication to Fred the cat?
No, that was by Deb Deandra.
It was, dang it. I told her Fred was female, but I didn't make it on there. That's okay.
Oh.
All right.
I don't know if you have, I'm happy to answer, and maybe if I can, I'm happy to answer if you had questions for Leah. Try to
Okay,
be able
well,
to talk on everyone's behalf, but we'll
yeah,
try me.
yeah. My question was because the new provider, and I didn't make the last SAB meeting, but the new provider for the solar garden only will take 100 residencies.
Right.
And so I was just curious as to if we were capped that because of their ability to to provide for us, or if we were still looking for, because we had a goal of 300. And so I was wondering if it was discussed that we had talked about adding more than the 100.
Yeah, so the 100's all that they can do for us as Pivot Energy, and it's not reserved for Nederland. And so we actually did recently run into some issues where people tried to sign up for Pivot and they couldn't, saying that all of those 100 spots were already taken. And so the work for community solar is not yet done, but Pivot is likely not going to be able to get us to that goal.
Yeah, I was able to sign up after I was told, I think last week after I was told that we couldn't anymore. So I know one other person was too, so it just seemed spotty and seemed like we could
Yeah.
get in there, but it does, they just don't have the numbers to do
And we
everything.
haven't.
And I'm
and we
also,
haven't re-
go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say we haven't received clarification on why it is that some were able to sign up and others weren't. And so there's some glitches there too. But yeah, this is not going to be. Pivot Energy is just a supplement to the challenges we have with US Solar. But I do think we still need to keep evaluating other options.
Okay, thank you for that.
So are folks who signed up with US Solar like going to be delivered that benefit or?
Yes, so those who are signed up with US Solar will still receive all the programming through US Solar. It's just we decided to not continue to promote them given some of the challenges we were seeing with signups and lack of customer service and not being able to support anyone through the process. So just feeling like just from a kind of a customer service centered standpoint, they weren't the right company for us. Thought Pivot Energy might be able to provide that support, but then we learned that they could only do the 100 households.
Yeah, for what it's worth, it was an easier process with better support.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is great, which we love. So maybe Pivot Energy will come back to us with an ability to serve more, but as it stands right now, it's still the 100 that we're aware of.
All right, cool. Thank you for that. I don't have any other questions.
I did learn that the NFPD will be announcing, I think tomorrow night, their top candidates for their fire chief.
Good.
This is Tanya. I had one question for Nikki's, the Chipeta, not Chipeta Park, the Gercio Field area. Is the plan to eventually, like, next year to keep it mowed or to keep it tall? Do you know, Miranda?
Yep, it's to mow it. The thought process was just not to mess with what's there, allow the seeding to really take by not mowing it. And so we're just
Right.
letting it grow wild and free. And then the
I
intention.
was there the other day, and there's unfortunately quite a bit of thistle and scentless chamomile in that seed mix they gave us, or it came in blew in from other places. So I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I'll pass that along.
Any other questions or comments?
I've got
Staff?
one.
I'll go for it.
This week we used, for the first time, we used somebody we employed to do a mediation, and I think it went really well. We got results that I'd like to see. Just to contrast it, Jesse and I spent the day in court today down in Denver. I really like mediation better. I think it comes to better solutions, and I'm pretty happy. I'd like to continue the process going forward. That's all I got.
Yeah, he seemed great. I talked to him for a while and he seems fantastic, actually. Yeah. Congratulations, Christy and family, for your daughter. Any other comments about staff? If not, we'll go to BOT reports. Any comments on your reports? All right, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move into our first, that's right, action item of the night with peak to peak 24333, action item 7.1, 24333, peak to peak well, cistern, and septic. I think this is specifically, I believe, around the sewer variance. And let's see, Britt?
Yeah, I'll be. Thank
You're a
you.
little quiet. I don't know what's up. We
Hi,
fix
can
that.
you hear me now?
Much better.
Okay, perfect.
These laptops are kind of hit or miss. They're pretty old. This is for a variance under Netherlands Municipal Code 13-53. So it's for the water connection variance and a sewer connection variance and a cistern variance for 2433 Peak to Peak Highway. The request for the construction of a well and construction of septic is because our code states it needs to be within 200 feet of the house. Currently, this property, there are no water sewer distribution mains located in the area. The closest water main is on South Hendrick Street, which is approximately 1,500 feet from the location. The closest sewer main is on West Rollinsville Street, which is approximately 1,500 feet as well. This is not something currently recognized as a priority or even proposed in town's utility infrastructure plans created by the town's JVA engineers. The applicant will provide information to you guys to demonstrate that it would be financially unfeasible for him to connect the water main located approximately 1,500 feet and the sewer main. Therefore, the applicant is requesting a variance from connecting to both the town's water and sewer to supply, and in return would build a well and a septic tank. He also is requesting to build a cistern in place of a fire hydrant. Nederland adopted the 2018 IFC Appendix C to the IFC, and it requires the water supply capable of providing the required fire flow for protection to the premises. Sorry, I'm having a tough time speaking today. Upon which a new structure is constructed. The proposed residential structure on 24333 Peak to Peak Highway is located 1,500 feet from the existing fire hydrant to provide sufficient fire flow for protection as set forth in the IFC and in MC. Therefore, it was discussed, a discussion with the applicant of installing the fire hydrant. As you remember from our last board meeting, this is something that we gave to another individual. Andrew Dawson spent a lot of time coming up with individuals who can't have these fire hydrants because they're not even close enough to town water supply. They would build a cistern that would be inspected by our fire department and approved by you guys and then recorded within their property file. So the questions we're asking today is, does the Board of Trustees approve Resolution 2023-39 authorizing a well, sewer, and cistern variance for 24333 Peak to Peak Highway? Sorry, that was a lot of information, but let me know if you guys have any questions.
We have any clarifying questions for Brett? And are you this, Leroy? Yeah, do you mind if you just come up and then you want to talk into the little black mic? There's a little button at the bottom. It's got to be a bright LED light. Bright green LED light needs to be on so we can hear you.
There we go. Hello.
Thanks. Go ahead and just identify yourself and then tell us what else you want to tell us regarding this.
My name's Dan Leroy, and I'm applying for the variance. I'm not sure I need to add anything more unless
Okay.
you guys have any questions. I'm here at your disposal.
Cool. Just giving you the opportunity. And any clarifying questions for Britt or Leroy?
So Andrew's feels that this is fully compliant with the fire department's needs for hooking up and, okay.
Yeah, I've had several conversations and I have an email from him saying he recommends the variance.
Okay, thank you. That's the only question I have.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry
and
when
I
I said,
will-
I'm sorry when
Yeah,
I said earlier it was a sewer only. I was mixing this up with something we had just done.
Yeah, no,
This
no
is a
worries.
full-
Yeah, and just to let everyone know, Andrew is in full support of this. The other property that you guys approved and this property are kind of why we came about the idea of how can we make sure that the fire department has enough water and it's proper flow. And so this was something between town staff and Fire Marshal Dawson did a ton of work found that this was a solution that would work for the fire department as long as approved through town and be more financially appropriate for the individual on these properties.
Okay, thank you, Britt.
Any other clarifying questions before we go to public comment?
Just one, did, this, what was the path? Did this go through the BZA or it came here?
This would have gone, I think, to the planning commission, right? Before
Uh,
this?
It doesn't go to either.
Either,
No,
oh, it
this
just came
is coming
straight to us.
straight to you guys.
Variances, that's right.
Got it.
Sorry, there are certain variances go to BZA and some go to us, so yeah. Hey, good question, though. I thought it went to the PC. Any other clarifying questions? If not, any public comment on these variances for this property this evening? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the trustees for final discussion and the motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2023-39, approving a variance for the requirements to connect to the water system and to the sewer system at 24333 Peak to Peak Highway.
Second.
Any discussion? Anyone have anything else? Okay, when you're ready, Macy.
Okay, Trustee Mountain,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
and Trustee Corvalon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leroy. Thanks, Brett. On with your project. With that, we'll go to our second action item of the evening. And I think given the edits that happened today, could you, Nicole, guide us through the same?
Sure.
That was something Miranda and I talked about. Maybe we didn't tell you.
Yeah, no,
want-
that's okay. Didn't, but I can absolutely do it. So you have before you basically our goals, our strategic plan adoption. And, you know, a little bit of the backstory is that, you know, the BOT met for the first time back in April to come up with a goal session with Crystal May, that's Netherlands Department of Local Affairs representative. Then in May, department heads met to also discuss their goals. And then back in June, the BOT held the second goals work session with department heads to review and list and identify what basically those top priorities would be for the next 18 months or actually more specifically until December of 2024. So we have then been taking the language and trying to make it as concrete and precise as possible by giving it dates. We put it in front of the NDDA, PROSEP, SAB, PC, and YAB between July and August. And so now attached is the strategic plan that is ready for BOT consideration for adoption. Now, also, we have, since releasing the packet, there's been a little bit more feedback from BOT members, as well as the public. And so we started to incorporate some of those suggestions as well. So what I'm going to do is shift over to that amended document, not the one necessarily in the BOT packet.
For those of you online, that is visible hopefully to you right now.
Yeah, can we get just to verify that folks can see the document up on their screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, cool. And so I can kind of walk through some of the changes real quick, and then hopefully we can have a good discussion on some of the items. So one of the first suggestions, and this came from Pro Tem Mahold, is that, to tighten up the language around, is it 18 months? Is it December 2024? December 2024 is sort of the timeline. So we're just making that very explicit. And then as we go down, one of the other suggestions from Trustee Severs last time is you said, hey, can we put in the document that we're going to review this each year? And so that was, missed from this last revision. And so I put it in there. And then it was also suggested that we put in, guided by our planning documents, which seemed like a perfectly fine statement to put in there. As we continue to go down the first page, and I don't have control of this. Macy, are you in control of it? Yeah. All right, Miranda, so you're going down. Okay, so if we go down to page, and one of the other suggestions was, hey, do we switch objective 1 and 4? One is obviously it's focusing on town employees, and switch it out with objective 4, which is, got language around our infrastructure, streets, public safety, that kind of thing. So there was a question that we had a public comment in favor of it, and we also had a public comment saying, no, you nailed number 1. So that's up for conversation. So hopefully we have a conversation about that later. As we continue to go down, if we go to objective 3, there we go. I did add in a specificity on objective 3.4 to specifically say central business district sub-area plan, just so it was more specific, because when we just said sub-area plan, people were kind of like, what does that mean? If we go to number 4, it was suggested to add objective number 4, add some of this language of maintain and modernize the town's infrastructure to reduce public safety and health risks, improve the quality of life in our town. Seemed like a reasonable statement, didn't have much, qualms with it. So that was something that had added. Also, and this was actually a question that came originally from Roy when we first released the strategic goals, and he said, hey, it would actually be really great to have a signalized blinking sidewalk, crosswalk at 119, basically in front of the visitor center. We looked into the Safer Main Streets grant that we have in order to do this work in front of the library, and we are actually getting a signalized crosswalk in front of the visitor center in addition to the library. So we just made that additional change to show that yes, it's happening in both places. So thank you, Roy, for the question, because that prompted us to look into it. And then from there, if we go to emergency preparedness under, what is that? Objective 4. She's already there. Talked with Miranda. She said it was perfectly fine to bump this to February. It is a little bit more aggressive. This was based off a public comment. It's a little bit more aggressive, but she said, let's do it. And then from there, on objective 5, I had added the phrase economic growth. And objective 6, again, from Pro Tem Mahold, had suggested that objective 6 state, listen to the voices of our workers, residents, and property owners, and implement changes to the Nederland Municipal Code. So just making sure that all voices are heard in the process. And that's it. So those were the changes that were recently suggested for this last revision. Questions, comments?
I made my one comment on objective 1 versus, I don't know if we want to get, right now it's just clarifying questions. Is that all you want right now?
Sure.
Okay, then.
Our discussion is perfectly fine too. I'm okay with.
Yeah, I mean, I think, especially hearing that there were comments in both directions, I think objective 1 makes sense because you got to have someone to do objective 4. So objective 1 is stabilizing staff.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion.
I've got a different opinion. I think that, or if I hear you right, what you're saying is don't switch 1 and 4.
Right.
I think the number we have to look at this plan is what are the objectives of the town, and I don't think we have any deeper responsibility than public safety and well-being for our residents. And then I think we've largely shown very good faith on what is currently item 1 already. So I don't think we're diminishing it in any way to put it in a different position. We're committed to every one of these. It doesn't, otherwise objective 6 would never get done. And then one other thing I would say at the very bottom where it says, for question, if you have questions on the 2023, 2024 plan, this is a 2023 plan, right? We're going to do another one for 24.
No, this goes until December 2024.
Okay.
Goes through the year.
But I see what you're saying though, because we would review in 2024.
Yeah.
And that might be but then that would be a 2024, 2025 adoption.
I guess I don't feel
Yeah.
particularly strong about it.
Okay.
It just jumped out at me.
Okay.
No, I mean, that's good logic. I think though, for me, I mean, again, just stabilizing who does the work. I mean, if we have no one working here, we'll have a hard time dealing with infrastructure and public safety.
All true, but we just had one more departure this week in spite of our best efforts.
And we will continue to, but we're still, I think, moving. And the part of it too is like how we treat staff, how we, support them and keep them as, as we worked on staff to create these goals, how we support their workload and don't overwhelm their workload and, allow them to actually accomplish all these other things. That's just,
But it's
that's my
Miranda,
way
would
about
it
other
be
folks.
possible to just jump in? So I had share with the board that I personally would prefer that staff remain as objective 1, and I hear what you're saying, Mayor Pro Tem Hold. I mean, we're still going to leave. Our soon departure is because of relocation, not because he dislikes his job or he's not thankful for the pay increase. It's just circumstances that are leading to his departure. But he did write in his resignation letter how much he enjoys working for town. So I think that's kind of those situations will still happen. But I guess for me and for town staff, really recognizing that historically they've never been identified as the priority. It's just more like, hey, here are all our goals and you need to execute them. So by having them in maybe a 1 or even a 2 slot is really acknowledging that staff have to come first in many ways because you need that stable staffing to do the rest. So one conversation, in talking to Trustee Sterling is, if you would like to amend, totally understand, but I would ask that you consider keeping staff then as perhaps your number 2 to again continue to reinforce rather than dropping it all the way down to 4 or 5. I just think it sends a different message than I think you're maybe recognizing. Town staff really rallied behind and acknowledged that in the original draft of this, the Board of Trustees was saying town staff are coming first. And so I do think it sends the wrong message if you were to do a significant rearrangement here and take it from 1 to 4. Because again, these are supposed to, as communicated, be in order of importance. So just something to really take into consideration, I think, when you're looking at the order.
Is that how you drafted it, in order of importance? Is that
Correct.
accurate?
And that's how we communicated. it to
I
all
was
the boards.
addressing that to Nicole
Oh.
Sterling.
Yeah, so in terms of objectives, priorities, yes. And I see, and at the same time, I see what you're saying, because that was almost my immediate reaction, when Miranda and I were discussing earlier, was like, well, and yet this is something that we've already sort of took steps toward. And like for me, the point is not loading too much of this stuff onto the goals so that we can accomplish, hopefully all of it, if not darn near all of it. And yet, I can also see Miranda's perspective and, Billy, what you articulated as, number 1 is the town staff. You got to have folks to do that. So for me, it's like, I can go either way. Like for me, it is such a priority to make sure that town staff get what they need. I don't care if it's number 1 or number 4. I'm going to be the best damn advocate for it possible. Right. So, but that's just my perspective.
How about you other trustees?
This is a really great document. I'm really in support of it overall. There are some things that I really care about that aren't on here, so I'm kind of curious I am apprehensive to endorse this at the moment for fear of some of the things that I care about being brushed aside.
Do you want to answer his question though about objective 1 and 4 being switched?
I'm with Miranda on it.
Okay, gotcha.
John and Tanya?
No, I agree with Miranda as well.
Tanya?
Yeah, I could go either way. If it's that big of a deal to staff to have it as number one, then leave it there. But I mean, I think we put our money where our mouth was pretty much instantly. So I couldn't imagine that anybody would feel that we aren't accomplishing what we have set out to do on this document, as we've already approved a supplemental budget to increase wages and will continue to do so. So yeah, it's fine. Keep it at 1. I just think that staff should also realize that it's just words and really it's actions that matter. So not to get too hung up on it.
Also, I like the idea that, yeah, we did take a good step on point number 1 on this this year, when I think we're all proud of that. And points number 2 and 3 are yet to be completed. And it gives us some momentum. I think it's nice to start off a list with something that we can achieve and to kind of roll into achieving the rest of them. I think 2 and 3 should be relatively easy. Number 3, you know, I think that's going to be worthy of some debate amongst us and from the community as well. But I think number 2 is definitely a must-have, right in there with number 1 on the objective number 1. So I'd love to see us round out and complete objective number 1, you know, right out of the gate, and then get us started with a bang.
Well, then is it okay if I just propose that we keep it as is and just move forward? Okay.
Any wiggle room for changing a little bit of the verbiage on 3? I know this is a 1 versus 4 debate, but I'd like to maybe talk a little bit about that with regard to bridge versus egress road to sort of order those in importance as well.
Oh,
Yes.
I know
Okay.
you have that in there, but I want to see if there's any like option to, discuss that a little further.
sure. Everything's debatable. Are we cool with just leaving objective 1, objective 1?
I totally am.
Okay. Trustee Corvalon, it sounded like you could go either way. We'll leave it as is. Moving on. All right. With objective 1, if we could discuss, like you were saying, hire the sustainability coordinator. I do think that, worthy of discussion. So would you like to go ahead and start that off? Trustee Severs?
We're going to talk about hiring a sustainability coordinator right now
Well, whether or not it stays in the plan.
in the objectives.
Yeah, because I mean, this is for us to decide like what we're going to really
Well,
focus on.
I guess this is to my point earlier. I feel like if we take our best stock of the environment today and say this is what we're going for the next 18 months, we're really we're cutting off our ability to be responsive to the moment and to tensions that could arise in the community and things that we want to respond to as the world is constantly shifting and changing. And I don't think we should decide right here and now if we want to hire a sustainability coordinator, for example. And that seems like that's what we're doing by putting it on this list. And I think that decision requires more consideration and debate. And there may be some other points on here if I were to go through it and identify some more points like that. I'm happy to have that conversation now. I just don't think that's not on the agenda really to decide on the sustainability coordinator right now. What was that? Come again? Who said that?
I think
Who said what?
it wasn't Tanya, so let's keep going.
Yeah, so basically that's sort of my point. Like, there's some things on here, that I feel are worth working on that aren't on here, and some of these things that are on here, I don't know that that we've given adequate debate and consideration to have be on here, like the sustainability coordinator, for example. And so I'm a little reluctant to endorse this this document at the moment.
Well, yeah.
What about on
Yeah.
that one? I kind of, oh, go ahead, you first, Tanya.
Oh, just that I think we need to clarify, maybe define what this document is, because I agree with Jesse, like, if we don't have sustainability coordinator on this document, so then it can't happen, or I feel like that's something we need to discuss as we get doing our budget, because we may not be able to afford it, right? We want it, can we afford it? And I don't want this document to be binding. I don't want it to be a binding document. It's a flexible document. This is just right now, we wrote down our goals. This is what we'd love to see happen, but life happens and things change, and there might be a new priority in 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. And I don't know, I guess I need to have this defined too. Is this binding or is this more guiding? Because then that it will affect if I'm going to ratify it or not, personally,
If
as
you
well.
go back to the second paragraph of the document, it says, guided by our town planning documents, we intend for this document to be reviewed every year by all town boards to assess accomplishments and to add on additional goals. However, more importantly, we want this to be a handing off document to new boards to help create consistency and continuity, something the community has long lamented about, as new board members often bring new projects instead of focusing on finishing existing projects the community has that long asked for. So, I mean, I guess that shows the fluidity, but I guess in some ways it shows like it's additive. It doesn't necessarily make clear that maybe something
Well,
doesn't
like
get
back
done.
to the
Gets
sustainability.
passed over. I mean, I'm just kind of,
Do we
without-
have
I'm
to
not
decide
thinking
that now,
specifically.
right? I don't think we do need to decide that now, and I don't think we should decide that now, personally, but
Mhm.
where sustainability could be one of our goals, increasing it but are we gonna hire or not? I don't know. I mean, I don't want to talk about that right now. That's not what I thought we were talking about either.
Yeah, and for that particular one, Miranda, correct me if I'm wrong, SAB, that was their one recommendation?
Correct, yeah, and as I noted in the AIM, there were a couple of staffing recommendations, but the sustainability coordinator is the one that's been around for probably more than 3 years, but the time I've been here, that we would move forward with hiring. So there was a request from SAB and there's really no other sustainability goals. Of course, the whole plan as a whole is embedded in sustainability, but no clear SAB goal. And so they asked for this integration to really work towards, and that's the goal, to bring on a full-time sustainability coordinator. And so I think by including it in the plan, you're really directing town staff to incorporate that coordinator into the 2024 budget.
What do others think on that particular item?
Because, I mean, the document can be approved without that number 3 in there under objective 1. There's nothing that says that it can't. But this again was just that request from SAB.
Yeah, another thought I have is that, and maybe this is too soft, but instead of hire, we could say,
Consider.
continue to analyze the benefits of hiring, and then, based on that, deciding whether or not that happens. Bad wording, but between now and December 24th as we go. But like our thing would be further considering and analyzing the benefits and challenges of hiring a sustainability coordinator. It seems kind of weak, but at the same time, maybe, I mean, I work in the sustainability world, so obviously I'm all for it personally, but maybe it gets decided through the board or through the public that this isn't how we spend the money. So if we have as a goal that we're continuing to decide if this is what we'll do, maybe it's a better place to be today than saying we're hiring. I mean, I'd like to hire, but I'm hearing what you're saying.
Oh, it's not that I don't want to hire. I don't know if we can afford it, right? With all the raises that we've done in our budget. And I think we really need to sit down and talk to Rita about it. And how is this going to affect our bottom line? Can we afford it? We don't want to pull out of reserves to pay for employees, So that's all. I think we need a further conversation with it. I'm all for it, right? Who doesn't want a sustainability coordinator? I mean, we want all these jobs, but can we afford it, right? It's like my own, your own home. You want everything, but you don't always buy everything.
And so Miranda just added some change of language. It says further consider and analyze the benefits of hiring a full-time sustainability coordinator. And so does that feel better to folks?
Yeah, I like that.
I can support it.
Okay.
I would support that. Jesse and Tanya?
I mean, it doesn't necessarily fit the spirit of how I read objective number one. Seems like a non sequitur to me. Foster a strong organizational culture where town employees are valued and town is an employer of choice. 1 and 2 definitely do that for me and support that objective. Whereas point number 3 kind of feels like it's out of left field for me in terms of supporting that objective number 1. I am in support generally of a sustainability coordinator, so please don't misinterpret that. I would like to have that debate and to do what we can to work that into the budget. I just don't feel that this is I don't feel like number 3 is supporting objective number 1 per se. So I'd like to eliminate it and strike it from the objective myself.
So what's our process? on
Well,
this?
I mean, we are in our process.
We're in the process.
This is what we're doing tonight. And I think you made a good point when you read objective 1. Part of me is wondering, does it fit elsewhere? But, is that cramming it into? I don't know.
Miranda, can I pop it over to you? Do you have any suggestion?
So there was an original conversation about kind of putting it somewhere else, but there was just no real good space because it doesn't belong in objective number 4 as it stands right now. Although objective number 4 is really where we've identified all the respective departments. And so unless you wanted to add a sustainability category, then I think objective 4 may be appropriate, but you'd have like a sustainability category. Because I think if you see objective 4 kind of every department except for sustainability.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, objective 3 has the word sustainable right in it. What about?
Yeah, I was looking at objective 3.
Objective 3, promote orderly, sustainable, resilient development in town through thoughtful, engaged, and equitable planning processes.
So those are all your plans though. So I think it would feel a little out of place because these are each of the planning documents that will be done.
Sure.
Yeah, okay.
Point taken. Foster sustainable urban development under objective 4, point number 2, foster sustainable urban development and enhance resident experiences by completing transportation improvement. Well, there's sustainable, but it's not necessarily.
So Miranda's suggestion that you bust it out into its own department under objective 4 probably makes the most sense.
It does. It does because because we are breaking out in objective 4, as you said, you're already breaking out departments. It is its own thing. In the world I like to see, it's woven into everything, but that's not always the case. But in this case, it could be just listed as its own.
I would like to see it there as a bullet point, but not just say hire, but with their sustainability coordinators' goals. What are they going to achieve? The solar garden, is it going to be composting and recycling? Because everything else has very, like what you're planning on achieving each department. So if we're going to hire a sustainability coordinator, what will they achieve? I'd like it listed as a bullet point next to it.
So there's a similar situation happening also with public engagement, and that we're looking at this through a public engagement and sustainability lens. Until this document is solidified, it's sort of hard to direct on what specifically to corral around from a sustainability.
I don't
Say that again.
Why?
Well, if it's a part-time job, it kind of has one job description, but if it turns into a full-time job, obviously there's going to be more stuff on that job description because you have more time to work on it. So.
And there's also a conversation to be had about having that sustainability coordinator direct report into Miranda, which I think would probably be in the town's best interest. And so with that, once, we have these guiding goals and whatnot, having that sustainability coordinator also wrap around these things that we're trying to do and how should they be approached from a sustainability lens.
I like where Miranda put it on the bottom of objective 4.
Okay.
At
Yep.
the moment.
See how we do this? This works, huh?
Moving.
We're moving. This is how it works. Okay. So thank you for that because, yes, we want this to be as clear to us and as possible, so we can all feel good about it. So the next thing, I don't know that there's anything specifically, but John, let's pop over to your question about objective 3. Was that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, what is it?
So I think to directly address some of the town's concerns, and this is, essentially our job is to just echo the sentiments of the town and try to accomplish as much as we can that creates a sustainable community based on the town's voice. That's how I feel my job is anyway. I feel like I'm just a mouthpiece for the general public. So the amount of concern I've heard over Big Springs seems to really overshadow the idea that we need a bridge. So I'd like to swap the egress road initiative as something that we circle back on and maybe kind of keep track of and corral, to use your terms, as best we can over other initiatives in 3. So maybe even if we want to simplify it, bullet point 3 could be just sort of centered around fire mitigation and
Wait, you're not talking about objective 3.
sorry, is that
Jeff-
I apologize, the
Jeff,
battery died, but
No, objective 3 and number 7 has the egress, but I think maybe you're talking about
Are you talking about objective 4
Bridge
and
for-
the bridge? Well,
I must have had like an old copy, but yeah.
so I'm tapping on Tom because this was a question that we had gotten in public comment about, hey, shouldn't the Big Springs egress be ahead of the bridge? And you had a really good comment or response to that.
Remind me.
You were so brilliant, you forgot. That these two things are going in parallel and that the Big Springs is actually going through the process of a study to identify the spot. And then there is going to be a design that is going to come out of that, the design for the egress route. That is happening at the same time that we are trying to secure the funding for the bridge. And there is a chance that we are not going to get that funding for the bridge, but we're pursuing it.
Okay, it's a parallel effort.
Say that again. What?
I won't accept that. But yeah, I think
Oh.
money flows to projects that are ready to go, that are shovel ready. So I think we pretty much got to do them in parallel. And I don't think one is that its position on a list indicates it's any less important.
I don't want to, I know that we're going to probably talk more about egress tonight, so I don't want to divert it too much on that, but I think maybe because we will discuss in depth, I think later, these details, it might be good for perception, speaking of which, to put the egress a little bit above in priority.
We went to Lahaina last year. This is not lost on me this week. What those people went through and how fast, it just dawns on me. We have no sirens. We have no, if our one tower goes down, we're so screwed. And it was a year ago, last summer, that I was running all the exit models for Big Springs. And I saw how screwed we are, how unprepared with options. And so I think I put it right up there. So I think they both got to be done. But, because I think we've been kicking the can down the road on the bridge for a long time, but this is an unprecedented amount of capital for infrastructure coming through the pipe. And we got to be in a 3-point stance and have our plan ready.
And the secondary bridge is emergency preparedness as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so objective 3, which does come before objective 4, lists the Big Springs egress, because it lists the work, number 7 says, complete the Big Springs egress study by December 2024. Secure funding to build out the egress route that will be designed under the study by December. So it's, I agree. I mean, of the perception piece, but really in the document itself, it is higher up. It's just in a different place because right now we have the money and we, because of a decision that was made last summer to not spend that money on building the egress, we're spending it, which we need to, on studying what to do. You know, with that study, which we're doing, like Tom said, these are both kind of happening to the best of our ability at the same time. By spending that money now, it allows us to be able to build it.
Well, I mean,
And then, oh, I'm sorry, and then emergency preparedness, the secondary bridge is called out as its own thing under number 4, but you know, if you were, you know, I'm definitely not opposed to like making another bullet in number 4 that's Big Springs egress.
well, how would you elevate it in priority or whatnot when the study has to be done?
That's another, I mean, we can definitely get into that because we still have that to discuss today. But is there a possibility of us sort of?
Okay, we still have that to discuss today. What do you
I
mean?
think, isn't that in, is it?
Consent agenda.
No, yeah, we did. We've
We've approved it.
we've
done.
approved moving forward on that. And then we did turn in our CDS funding for the secondary bridge and we have 2 senators that are advancing it. Our congressman is not going to, but our 2 senators are going to advance it.
Okay, that's helpful.
And our congressman isn't happy about the fact that we didn't spend the money he got for us
Yeah.
a couple of years ago. So that's something to think about.
That's a bummer. That is a bummer. And I guess maybe just in the spirit of preparedness from a standpoint of unity around solution finding, it would be good. I think it would be very positive press to impress upon the public the importance this holds with us as well as the community, so that this isn't something that we're pushing under other things like bridges or, you know, those sorts of things. Yes, the bridge will provide some safety, but we have to also be realistic in the sense that if the fire occurs in the center of that community, that still cuts off.
Well, sounds like you want to be a champion for the Big Springs egress.
I'm glad to take that on. Yeah.
And
Can I say something about the second bridge?
yeah, Tanya, go for it.
I don't think it's any less important. I think they're both incredibly important.
Yep.
If there was a traffic problem in our only bridge out of town that would impact evacuation, then half that town can't get out of the fire and all that. It has a nightmare scenario aspect attached to it, having one way out of this town. I don't think it's less important, and I think they're both important. They're both incredibly important, and I just don't think it's this. I want people to understand the second bridge isn't just like for fun. It's because of emergency egress. If something where car breaks down or something on the bridge and you can't, or on the highway and you can't go, and there's chaos and cars are backed up to the Sundance, you know, because of that, we're going to be wishing we had that second bridge. So I think it's misunderstood maybe that the second bridge is just for like traffic when it's busy out or for festivals. I think it's not. It's for emergencies.
So I have an idea. We take objective 3, number 7, and we move it down under objective 4, and Miranda, catch me if you don't like this. And instead of secondary bridges, the heading, we make it, you know, emergency egress as the heading, and then number 1 or 2, I don't really care, is the egress, you know, is the Big Springs egress coming down from 3-7, and number 2 is the secondary bridge as it's written there. And then we have them both grouped together, you know, in this document, right together as emergency egress development. Thoughts?
Yes, I think I could work with that. Absolutely. And to go back to Tanya's point about how do we prioritize it or how do we make it important, we actually follow through on it. We actually put action to it. Enough of this, like as Pro Tem Mahold says, kicking it down the road. It's enough. It's enough.
Agreed. It would be nice if we had, I mean, I know that this study, was looking at the timeframe on it. Seems like it's pretty extensive, up to 3 years.
We'll be shovel ready in 2025.
That would be great if
It'll never be cheaper
as
to
a
build.
team, we also were unified
Sure.
as one voice. We'll go with what the, the best recommended route is, despite where the impact may be. We have to consider some things, but the loss of human life, I think this should be the number one consideration in all of this. And
Yeah.
so having this be a potential stalled effort again because of this team, I don't think that's, in my book, acceptable. I don't think that's something we should even consider.
I agree. And I think we just, as best we can, we should bring the people in Big Springs that would be most impacted by this personally with their land right into this conversation as we're having it along the way, because
Yes.
one couple that Tom had told me about that I talked with a while back, they just said, if you're going to have eminent domain on our land, we just want to be part of the discussion and know why you're doing it. And it's not that we are talking about doing that, but he brought up, the point was good, that they should be in this dialogue from the get-go.
And not read about it in the paper.
And Tom, you've even suggested like a tiger team for Big Springs egress. And so we got a champion over there waiting to go. Okay, I'm cool with that.
Might have to quit the fire department.
Let's include a guy with a fire hat.
Yeah. Miranda, are you cool with that change?
Yep.
Cool.
Thank-
Choo.
Thank you.
All right, next. Let's go back to-
Go back, just to make sure we like the rest of number 3. Is that anything else on number 3, John?
No, not from my perspective. Thank you. And thanks, Nicole. The effort is very well received. This is great. So appreciate it.
It's going to be badass once we start to knock things off. Real quick, I want to pop back over to Trustee Severs. You said that there are things on here that you care about that aren't on here. So I'd like to give you an opportunity to talk through that.
Yeah, some things that I care about that aren't on here. The pump track, for example.
Mhm.
So, I've gone through the Nederland planning process. I've been working on that for over a year since I've been here. I've gotten, buy-in from every single advisory board. And it was a recommendation from town staff initially to start working on that. And that's not on the list. And I'm a little disappointed on that. And I want to continue working on that. So, and I do want support from staff and this board to do that. So I'm curious to know how to move forward with that.
I think that's a fair question. I guess my question back to you is if this isn't isn't supposed to be taking town resources or money in its development, how do we legitimately, I guess, put it on the list?
Well, I never said I wasn't planning to use town resources. I said I wasn't planning to use town money. And some town money is already being used for it through the DDA for the planning. And I did say that I wasn't planning to use or go to the town asking for money for the actual construction cost. And I was planning to do fundraising for that. That said, this is a large implementation in the middle of our town park, our most developed, our largest, most used, highest profile town park. And it definitely will require interfacing and coordinating with Nikki and other park staff, as well as Miranda and, the DDA potentially, should they continue to be involved in implementing the budget of this planning. So ProSab, all the town boards that have already participated in it, I'm sure they're all going to want updates, as we go. So town resources is different than town money specifically. I never said I was not planning to use any town resources. So
Okay, so town resources. So I guess my other question is, other than a letter that was written in from Karen Blakemore about suggesting we put the pump track on. This is the first time anyone's actually specifically made that request. So it's gone before ProSab. It's been in front of you before. So why
It's it. What are
the
you
goals
pump track?
document? Why hasn't this been the suggestion before?
Well, I'm being asked to vote on it right now, so that's where I'm at. So
And then also from Nikki's perspective, it was asked of Nikki and town staff, right? What are the goals or what are the things that you want to accomplish over the next, until December 2024? And so that's where I've also would have a question, that she said that these are the projects that will be appropriate for the time, until December 2024 that I can accomplish. So those would be my
sure.
questions.
I mean, it's a relationship between the ProSab and Nikki, and it's a relationship between us and Miranda and Nikki as well. And, ProSab voted on and endorsed.
What about a broad bullet point on Parks and Rec, that says explore, possibilities for recreation and trail connectivity throughout the Nederland area, and just keep it rather vague, because you never know, there's other opportunities for recreation that might come up that we'd all love to see. Or do you want to specifically explore opportunities for additional recreational opportunities such as the pump track and trail connectivity throughout town, something of that nature?
Well, I
I'm not
definitely
sure
want.
if you want it specific, or can it just be opportunities for recreation? Because in that way, that leaves it open to many ideas that could happen.
Yeah, I'd really like both, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'd like to specifically call out the pump track because I want to keep working on that, and also I want to remain flexible to upcoming opportunities or tensions that could arise in the town. Things come up. We lost our police department. We never were planning on that, but we had to dedicate a lot of time towards resolving it. So
Yeah.
that's where this is kind of like like the way a tank sets out a course going across the land versus a bicycle. I'd rather us be more like a bicycle in the way we steer than a tank, I guess.
Well, so ProSab's one addition was under number 6 under objective 3. And it said, update the community's goals and create a trails connectivity plan
I like that.
under the PROST. And so that was the recommendation for those goals.
What page is that on?
So under objective 3, page.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the Parks and Rec.
If you're looking at the
That maybe needs to get repeated in the Park and Rec area,
36.
because the under Parks and Recs, maybe it should be there too. I see
Well,
it.
the thing is too, we do have a trails master plan from 2005, and there's segments of trail on that plan that have not yet been completed. And I don't want for us to not complete existing planning documents because we have a plan to make a new plan. I want us to be doing stuff at the same time that we're actually planning to do stuff. So, I don't really like kicking the can down the road until we have the next plan, because we do have a lot of history that we can rely on, and a lot of planning and a lot of volunteer hours that goes into creating previous plans. And I think we need to be bold in our willingness to take action and get things done now, even if we're waiting on a plan that could be done next year. For example, the 2005 Trails Master Plan.
That is
Old.
20 years old.
Yeah, and it's our most current one. So we got to work off of it.
And so that was the direction from ProSab?
No,
Or-
that's what I'm arguing right now.
Oh, okay.
But what is ProSab not making use of that as they move through the
Well,
PROS process?
what I just said is that there's segments of trail on that proposed Trails Master Plan that have not yet been completed. Therefore, we have an aging Trails Master Plan that has been sitting and collecting dust, and we're excited about creating a new Trails Master Plan. And I think we should create a new Trails Master Plan with new insights and new information and new inspiration. However, I also think that we should be relying on our existing trails master plan and continue to work towards creating trails.
So if you were to take one of the things off of Parks and Rec, what would it be? Because at this point, adding more, we've already been told by town staff, like, this is what we can accomplish.
Don't add more. I mean, I don't know, that's
Yeah, I mean, Barker Meadows is almost done.
sure. And also
Well, that could just
the
get
objective
cropped right
number
off.
1.1 of raising the pay for everybody, that's already,
No, under Parks and Rec.
Oh, I know, but.
I know. I'm
one,
just saying, like, we could add
improve-
2 things to Parks and Rec and take something off somewhere else too. Like, it's not a zero-sum game either, you know, and I don't know that, so if you want me to go through here and take something off, I know I'm basically telling somebody else that something that they wanted to put on there is not as important as my thing, which is also not fair.
Well, it is about thinking about the impact to one particular department. And so, like you were saying, Tanya, you know, if Barker Meadows is coming off, or hopefully should be done soon, does that
It's gonna
make
be
room for
done.
something?
It has to be done, so.
Yeah, make room for something else. Miranda, I'd like to pop it over to you and ask your thoughts on it, because you would intimately know what's going on with the Parks and Recs department and what they can handle over the next year.
Yeah, I mean, I guess to your point, it is interesting that ProSub hasn't brought it up, and I would really default back to them a bit here. The pump track is being championed by a subcommittee that is Trustee Severs and Sam Ovett, and so of course it's support by staff, but we're not championing it. You know, I do wonder though, and sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, you know, there's a lot of things that you might be looking for advisory board and commission to weigh in on. And so perhaps this just isn't ready for adoption tonight, because I would also want to be mindful that the group who is championing this, being ProSab, that they agree with what falls under Parks and Rec.
Sure.
And that
When's
would
the next
include
time you sit
Nikki.
down, Jesse, with ProSab?
We're finalizing the agenda tonight. I might be multitasking a little bit and submitting some agenda items for the pump track, for
Well,
example.
when's your meeting?
It's in, I think,
This
this Thursday. Yeah.
Correct. And SAB meets next week, because I know there was a desire by Trustee Corvalon about adding SAB goals to that one.
Hey, what?
That you wanted to add SAB
Oh,
goals
yeah,
to the
yeah,
sustainability
exactly.
coordinator.
Yeah, sorry, I was like, wait, did I say that? Yeah, I did, you're right.
Well said. Is there wording? Do we want to finish that statement that Miranda started typing? Parks and Rec, explore possibilities for recreational opportunities such as the pump track and trails connectivity throughout the
Yeah.
Nederland area by, and it,
You could also add dog park, because I hear that like so much, that just so
This
they
is
don't
true.
get mad that they're not
Well,
listed on here.
So, but that's.
We're just
brings
saying
up a-
explore possibilities. We're not saying it's gonna get done, you know? It's just
The whole town's a dog track.
closed-minded. I agree with you, Jesse, but a lot of people really like dog parks.
Well, and so to your point, Trustee Corvalon, if the hog park would be put on here, like, that is going to require exploration and time and staff. And does that have a higher priority?
Explore
over-
possibilities for recreate. Well, how about, you know, something about with, you know, with additional volunteer subcommittees that champion these things, like the
Well-
pump track is doing, you know, I don't,
Well, the pump
know,
track is definitely a different sorry, Tanya.
Yeah.
The pump track is definitely in a different category than a dog park, because
agree.
the pump track at this point has gone through the entire Nederland planning process.
Mhm.
It's been endorsed by ProSab, voted on and supported. It's been funded by DDA for planning. And, you know, I want to just speak to Miranda's point, which is being championed by a subcommittee of Sam and myself, which is great. And I love that we can do and get things done that way. And I would like to suggest the language of continue to support the subcommittee as needed for the pump track.
I'm fine with that.
So
I think that's a little too
too broad.
much for
Yeah,
me.
too much.
Yeah, like I won't support that.
Especially as needed.
Yeah, that's just like at the whim of anything that you need. And that just,
I think where that statement was before was much Well, more regional.
Where it was before.
It was explore
explore
recreational
the possibility
opportunities
we've
such
already-
as
the
pump
ship
track.
has
boat
already
trip.
set sail.
Well, and so the other thing, just real quick, from a goals perspective, explore possibilities is not an actual very specific goal. It's like, no, what do you need as an output of that? So we probably need to tighten that up a
I guess
little bit.
I personally don't know that the pump track needs to be on this document. Here's why. Because really, right now, the money needs to come from another direction. And it really
Well, it's already
is
come
not-
from DDA.
It's a small snip pittance.
No, it's
compared
not.
to-
It's significant.
It's
Ten-
what, 10 grand?
$10,000.
Yeah, but a fraction of what will need to come to build it. So the $10,000 have been spent, and I'm hoping will be spent, and the design will come out of it. And then from there, it's really on whoever, and I've suggested Teens Inc. get involved with people that are good at raising money. It's on an entity to come back with money to bring this. Because right now, the town doesn't have the money and isn't going to commit that money to build a pump track.
Well, it doesn't have the money for a secondary bridge or an egress out of town.
Right. I think that's a kind of a totally different level of need from like providing safety and public safety. I mean, quality of life, recreation, all about it. But like emergency egress,
Well, we have Chipeta
pump
Park
track
and we have
aren't
the
in the
community
same
center.
category.
Yeah, we're in the Parks and
Yeah.
Rec category though right now, so.
Right. No, and I'm good with it. I'm just
And
saying.
we don't have the money either to do the ice rink. It's a BOCO grant we haven't even applied for yet or received. So they're on there with the hopes. So I hear Jesse, because what I think the fear is that if it's not on here and if for some reason they got the money before this document expires, it would be really sad if town didn't support it because it's not
Well,
on the document.
I think you
And
can
that's
go
the
back
fear.
to
Yeah.
the second paragraph and see that we would meet at least every year to add additional goals. So, I mean, I don't think this money is going to be raised quickly. And so it could be that something could be added later. It just, to me, it doesn't seem like, really I think, I'm comfortable with the wording with Tanya put out there, but I'm hearing what Nicole's saying is that, if exploring possibilities is really not a goal.
It's not very specific enough.
Okay, well, what about something that shows that the Parks Department is open and will devote, some sort of time and resources to new opportunities that might arise, or, I mean, that, I don't know.
Well, the
You're
point
right.
is I haven't bought in completely to this document or to endorsing this document. And those are some of the reasons why. And for example, the pump track, and we're kind of digging in and drilling down into the pump track debate itself, which is not why I brought that up. I brought that up because there's other things too that aren't on here that, and there's going to be new things that I think about or that any one of us could think about, or some community member comes to us and says, hey, this is really important to me and I think it needs to be on your radar. So I never really understood that that's what we were doing when we did our board retreat. I thought I wasn't aware that this was the path and that was the endeavor that we set out to achieve, which was to create a document that we're going to make a commitment of a list of goals for the next 18 months and stick to it. And then I don't know what the level of flexibility that we're retaining is as a board. And that makes me uncomfortable and unprepared to endorse this right now.
So even though it says we'll review every year to provide that.
That definitely helps.
To
That
provide that
definitely-
flexibility, that was your suggestion.
Yes, and it definitely eases my uneasiness about it before that got in there. That makes it better for me. I'm more ready to support this because that's in there. However, it's not still not there 100%. So
Well, I think just like any company, municipality, anything, like having a plan to work, right? So you can then work the plan. And as long as it has some flexibility that we can add some things in there. And I think that's why we need to make the commitment. We actually need to say, we're going to review this. But here's the other risk, and this is something that I kind of brought up last time, is that or saying that, well, it's just kind of there. you know, we can add other things to it or be working on these other things, that makes it also untenable in my mind. It's like, then why even go through this process? Why even try to codify anything and work toward it if it just
This isn't codified either.
so why, I guess, sorry if codified was the wrong word, but why sort of bring a document together and agree upon it if there's this room to just continue to work on other things and not put and pool our resources. So, you know, by articulating these are the things that we want to work on, it's like, okay, great. We know what we should be championing. We know what we should be pushing for, right? It's that concerted effort rather than just hoping stuff gets done.
Well, but like, there's no, I'm not saying anything about parking or anything in here either.
Right, parking is actually, it is addressed under number 5, objective 5, paid parking.
It's also on the agenda coming up soon.
I think, yeah, I think the main thing is like, you know, or one thing on the pump track. I'll get specific, like Nikki kind of made clear what she can do between now and December 24, and she's all for the pump track, but this isn't in her list at this point. So I do think a lot of the work on that right now just sits outside the Parks and Rec department. And I also will say, like, there are plenty of things I want to see on this list that aren't. I just think, you know, I start the day out sometimes planning to do so much stuff and then get a fraction done. And sometimes you got to make a list that's kind of like doable, smart, you know, achievable is the A. And so some things that are really important to me are not on the list here.
Well, like paid parking's on here, but not like create more parking, like the plan that Jim Reese gave us last summer, with all those spots by Lakeview Drive and everything.
I think
That's
the
the multimodal.
transportation, multimodal plan, yeah.
Yeah, that's also written into the
Is it?
multimodal plan.
So those things are in there. Yeah, it's not called out clearly as
Okay.
parking, but it is very much part of that plan.
Well,
Uh,
so,
and-
so-
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, no, I mean, I agree with Jesse on that one point, if he wants to add something about recreation in the pump track. But I also don't think, I don't think that it not being on here is gonna make progress stop. And if it does, then
Right.
we have a real reason to bring this back as an action item to amend it before. And
Yeah,
would like
I
that
don't
to
think
be
it'll
achieved.
stop
So
progress on this.
I would like to
at
see
all.
that on there too, like at any moment, this could be brought back as an action item and a discussion item to be amended. We don't have to wait a year if, you know.
Sure. I don't see any problem with that. I also share the same concern with Miranda in just making sure that ProSap is sort of called in and asked about the pump track as well.
I really appreciate and see the value of doing this, and I really like all the things that are on here, and I do want to achieve all these things. So I hope I'm not misunderstood in that regard. And I do want to support this. I just I also want to understand how this is going to relate to our ability to be responsive day to day and to adjust on the fly.
So it should, to answer that, this is my personal opinion, but anyone else can answer. It should give us pause when those things are flying in our faces day to day as to whether or not it requires a conversation with this document. Because I think that's oftentimes what gets us like squirrel, right? Kind of a scenario. And hopefully this document asks us to just take a moment and say, where is this in priority to these other things that are on here?
Yeah, I think we're always going to have to replace busted water mains, but not replace our sewers if it's not on the plan. So, yeah, I think I don't think I saw one last summer that said, take your 90-year-old police department, throw it in the garbage and start over. But it happened.
Yeah, and you know, I feel that there's a cultural element that's missing here as well. You know, I feel that you know, I haven't quite known exactly how to articulate the value that I'd like to help bring forward into our um, our discourse and our culture here as a board, and also to have that kind of permeate the rest of the town. But it's along the lines of good neighbors, and we really rely on the police to do that for us. And I don't think that the police are really there to foster good neighbors per se. They're there to enforce the law. And so I think some of the work that that Tom has been spearheading with bringing in mediation services is really great. And I think that it can also really, I would like to really weave that into our STR conversation. That's what I plan to do when we get there in tonight's meeting. And I think that it's an important element of what we're trying to achieve here as a town. And I don't know what department that lives in, what advisory board that lives in, but I think it's important. And I'd like for us to have a language for it, and for us to prioritize it, and to find ways to invest in creating a positive, constructive culture where we can resolve disputes and get along well with each other and rely on one another in times of need and crisis.
Thanks.
Amen.
Yeah, well said. I have a question, Miranda. As we're working through this and making edits, does this need to go then back to ProSab and SAB before this? Like, will we need to continue this? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, I guess my concern with approving it tonight is you're
Right.
asking things of those departments, SAB and ProSab, and then of course Nikki's not here. I just think it would be best to allow them an opportunity to weigh in this week and next week, and bring it back on the 5th of September.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I just want to put that out there that we would need to do that, and Eric should be here on the 5th too. So, anyways, I do want to go to public comment right now. And
But before we
Okay,
do
go ahead.
that, essentially, what has to happen between now and the 5th to make sure we can unanimously get this done by then?
Well, I think getting through, and I'm happy to wait for more clarifying questions, but then public comment, and then probably agreeing to a draft this evening that we would say this goes to ProSab, this goes to SAB, ProSab's meeting Thursday, SAB hopefully soon. And then September 5th, it could come back to us. I guess just, I'd love to see it be unanimous. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to be.
I hate to drift into Q4.
No, it doesn't have to be unanimous. It just needs to be a
Oh,
majority.
I'd like to see something about it, and at any point, this can come up as a discussion item and be amended. We don't have to wait a year. If we are noticing that this is being like a real thorn, and we're, and it's being used a lot, like, oh, it's not on the plan, so we're not going to do it, even though it's a good idea, or there's a grant available, that's happening all the time, then I might want to bring this back up.
That's fine. I think we always need to be nimble, and most documents are, living documents. And yeah, a to-do list comes in handy when you're getting distracted by, river water main.
One suggestion to you, Jesse, on the home rule, I raised it. I didn't get it on here. I'm going to keep working on it. And
I'd like to see it on there.
I'm committed to getting that done, regardless whether it's been, but this is a personal project. And I think I'll work with you on pump track, because I believe strongly in it, and I think we'll get buy-in.
If it's not on here, does that mean we couldn't have a goal to get it on the ballot by April? I mean, that's the stuff that I'm wondering.
I think that we're not going to be, it won't be on the docket for any of our meetings this year, is what I'm reading into it. It doesn't mean it couldn't be in the first quarter of next year, which
Wow.
would be in time.
Yeah.
Well, that's just the thing. I mean, if Billy wants to put something on the agenda, I don't think this document is taking away his ability to put it on, or any two trustees as a current.
Or any two trustees.
Our current
Okay, so it
custom.
could come on the agenda as a discussion item if we.
I'm going to keep working on it.
Well, I want to keep talking about it.
Good.
Me too.
You're on.
And I love this, and I am a fan of discussing and possibly moving the home rule and universal voting. But the whole idea of this goals was to get together and start being a little more, getting some clarity about what we are doing together versus what we're doing individually. Because we're a bunch of lone rangers, and we have been for about a year now. And this is about trying to create some cohesion in the board. That doesn't mean everyone's, I mean, I'm not trying to put shackles on any of us. I don't want them on me either. I'm just trying to remind us that the goals was about creating some cohesion in a board that is seen by the public and by me as not very cohesive. So,
Well, and just focus. I mean, I could,
Eat your broccoli before you have your dessert.
yeah. Okay, like I like that phrase. Yeah, it is about eating our broccoli and like coming to pulling together on these things that we know have to get done. And the dessert or those other cool things, the only thing I would ask is like, is now the time? Right? And, as opposed to some of the other things that are on here. I mean, all of us should be asking that, like, is this thing that I've got a priority?
we need home rule in 2024 or 2025. I mean, it's like, I don't know, but that's kind of the broccoli dessert thing.
You wanted to go to public comment.
Public comment, Kayla? She brought Coke, so she got energy. Cola.
Hope I don't run over 3 minutes, but I'm prepared if you are.
I'll give you my 3.
Kayla Evans, 1250 Eldora Road. I'm very perplexed. I haven't been to a few meetings because in the summertime, I'm really busy running our business out at the ranch. I have so many conflicting and a lot of thoughts in my head about listening to you guys for the last hour and a half. And some of them are really good and some of them are not. I think I've watched so many boards come and go, and a lot of times things happen in this town because projects or ideas or things get driven by a person, not necessarily the town, but a person, good or bad. If your goal is to want to be democratic and have things voted on by the people, there needs to be more of a process to say, every dang charrette we've done in this town for the last 10 years has said they want a swimming pool. That's the number one thing. There's no money for a swimming pool. There's no money for a pump track. There's no money for a dog park. There's no money. This town doesn't have space and it doesn't have money. It needs both of those to accomplish all of these ideas, these wonderful dreaming things that we want to do to make our town better and offer more things to kids and adults and tourists and whatever. And they're not getting done. Why? Why are they not getting done? What is the safety in this town? What is the priority in this town? Pump track, bridge. That's kind of a no-brainer. I love you, Jesse, but and then you're talking about hiring a person to tell you to compost when up here you compost in your bear bait. I think if the people in this community knew you were thinking of spending and bringing another person in and giving them a salary to tell them how to be sustainable, they wouldn't appreciate that. I don't think that would go over very well. We have people in this community, they're so smart and so accomplished. They're people that do seminars for young families that have little kids. How do you be a better parent? Here's a whole bunch of classes on this. Hey, how about somebody to say, here's a way to compost. We don't need to hire somebody right now in this town, doesn't have any money, in my opinion. I just think, I still have the t-shirt from a pig roast that we did out at the ranch to raise money to start looking at getting a second bridge here. 1990. That's frightening to me. It's frightening to me because even Hawaii's on fire and we're not doing anything to be proactive. We talk about it. And we also put things where they are easiest to put instead of where they should go. And I think it's time you guys need to step back a little bit. My head is so full of a lot of stuff from you guys tonight. And I'm, without yelling and kind of screaming and being frustrated, I want to be here to support and help and But to let you know, I think you guys are going off the rail a little bit on some things. I'm not getting good messaging from you all. I think you're spending a lot of time dealing with stuff that seems like it is not a priority. And that frustrates me because I think we have a lot bigger problems in this community. We are changing. This town is changing. We're changing financially. We're changing business. We're changing a lot of things. A lot of our older folks that have a lot of institutional knowledge in this town are dying or moving. And a lot of the new blood that's coming into town is there for financial reasons, and they haven't gotten the heart yet of the community. They're trying, but they don't have it yet. How do we help them? How do we say, hey, welcome to Nederland. Hey, you have skills. Bring them to us. We can use you. We can help you. You can help us. You don't seem very receptive to that. And when I am the only frickin' person sitting out here in a town this size, and that we can't get more people to come to these meetings and to listen and to give you feedback and to tell you what they think, you're kind of working in a vacuum. And I appreciate that. That's why I come and, you know me, I'm shy. I don't tell you how I feel. So I'm sad. I also applaud you for stepping into the ring and wanting to help and wanting to do something in this community. But I think you guys are, it's like, you're like all little sparklers going off in different directions. And that was a stupid analogy.
Pretty good one, actually.
I don't think you're just, you're stop, step back, take your time. Don't rush into these things. Prioritize better, prioritize the way you really need to, and understand you have two problems. You're running out of space and you don't have enough money. How do you generate those things? I got an idea, but there are other ways too. You need to help businesses come into this community. You need to start making sure that your tax base is there and working for you, and that tourists are not ugly Americans. They leave a lot of money in this town. And yes, we have to stop and let them walk across the street. But if you think the cars coming down from Big Springs are not going to be up just on a Saturday or Sunday, they back all the way up. So it isn't just the fire. It's how do we maintain that we've been found to make it okay still to live here for the people that do, and that we're not decreasing their quality of life because we're not taking care of the problems that we need to, that we could. Thank you for listening to me. I don't mean to be bitchy and preachy, but I just, because I know all of you,
Can I ask you something?
I'm
Kayla?
frustrated, but I love you all.
Thanks, Kayla. Can I ask you something?
Sure.
So relating to this document, are you suggesting that we work on it longer, or do you think we should endorse it right now? What
is it? Well, does it have any teeth behind it, really? I mean, is it another document that says, this is what we want to do?
So
What does it actually do?
Well,
the purpose would be for it to have some teeth, to say that this is what we're going to be held accountable for, right?
To give all the sparklers something
mouth's
to,
dry.
give all the sparklers something to look at.
Is this your
to
Envision
focus.
2020, 30, or?
This is our goals for the next, until December 2024, to say that this is what we want to accomplish for the town. And to be able to say, look, this is what we have to focus on. Check, did it. This one right here, check, did it. It's about creating some focus for the Board of Trustees.
That's great, but if you don't do that, what
know.
happens?
I know, I get it. I get it. That's why I think what I'm hearing you say is, hey, figure it out, get it prioritized, agree that you're going to focus on this.
Well, I don't think it has to be as goddamn big as it is. You're trying to put every little nut and bolt and screw in there. Figure out what you honestly can do and do it.
Well, and this has been gone through that process. There's a lot of things that town staff or that, consultants are working on that doesn't necessarily require town staff or our time or whatnot. But it's it's a focus, right? And we're saying, we're going to be asking about it. Hey, where is the status of this? So that none of it gets forgotten either.
I appreciate that, but there's no guarantee that is going to happen. There is no guarantee.
How
in
would
this
you,
document.
how would you suggest that we provide a guarantee?
I'm not saying that you can with a document. I mean, what I'm saying is, I don't think you guys are pulling. I look at you as a 7-horse trica. And right now you're just, you're all going in these directions instead of pulling together.
Okay, got it. Understood.
And because you all have very individualized, specific loves and wants, and I'm going to champion my thing, I'm going to champion my thing. But let's look at what is the best thing for the town as a whole?
Yeah.
What is the best thing? I mean, if everything goes to a vote, you guys are voting on this and deciding that. And Jesse, I mean, how many people, honest to God, we live in a dog park, again, in a way, and we also live in a pump track, in a way. Where are you going to put that when space is a premium in the town?
It's all published online, Kayla.
I just
But the idea is pull together. for
pull
goodness sakes.
together and prioritize better where your energy is put towards things that are going to save people's lives.
Yep.
In, anyway, thank you. Sorry
Thank
to be a bitch. Sorry.
Thank you.
I love you all.
Thanks, Kayla. Any folks online have a public comment? Someone, Brian Smith, has raised his hand.
My name's Brian Smith. I live in Big Springs. First of all, I just want to thank Trustee Sterling for putting this together. I know the amount of work is immense, and then leading the discussion tonight. I think you did a really good job, and it was enjoyable to listen. As far as the actual objectives, I'd like to start with expressing my support for keeping objective 1 where it is, and I appreciate that you all agreed with that. I think the town staff gets a lot of undeserved hate on social media through words, and I agree with Trustee Corvalin that actions are more important than words, but I think the town has kind of proven that sometimes words do matter. So thank you for leaving that there. Next, Trustee Mountain, I appreciate you bringing up the egress route. I fully agree with your points. And one additional point is that while understanding a bridge through town is important, if one of the largest population areas in town can't get out from Big Springs, then the bridge really doesn't matter and won't be used by us anyway. So I like seeing that moved up. Next thing was some of the discussion points from the board. I totally agree that flexibility of the goals is needed. But I think we also need to realize that this is a town, a small town with limited staff. And realistically, nothing takes a year. You can go back to NetHead's posts from nearly 15 years ago talking about the Big Springs egress. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name of the person who just spoke, but they brought up the bridge in 1990. So I think saying that we need to have a plan that can change on a dime is actually slightly disingenuous, because the way this town works, it takes years to get the funding and everything else to go through. And I think having a set of goals like this that will let us know what we're working on, what the town has prioritized, is really important. And with that, I think that it's important to understand that if everything matters, nothing matters. And while it's great that we're trying to expand recreation opportunities in the town with the pump track, I guess the dog park and other things, the safety and security and well-being of our town members is what matters most. And I think that working on a pump track is great, but I don't think it's something that needs to be called out in a document of things that we are actively working for in the next 18 months. That is all I have. And again, thank you for the discussion.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate your perspective. Anyone else have a public comment this evening? Hand raised there. I can't see it by Barb. Go ahead, Barb.
Thanks, Billy. I just wanted to expand on that a tiny bit, and thank you, Brian, for speaking. Within the last week, we received notification that the Mountaineer has all the way through part of 2010 now available online for free. It contains the history of Nederland from 1977 to now. And the first article that I see in the Mountaineer is August 29th, 1985 mention of a second bridge. So all of that historical knowledge is available to the town free of charge. Please look it up so that we can stop working on the same thing every 10 years and start working on processes that we can finish in 10 years and then work on another one. It's so easy to do. Please use that information. Brian's comments just brought that up along with Kayla's. Thank you.
Thanks, Barb. Any other public comments? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the board and for further discussion and to get this to a place where we can send it to, we're going to continue, that'll be prior motion, but we'll get to a place where we can send it to SAB and ProSAB between now and the next time we talk about it.
I mean, I won't have my feelings hurt if you guys want to vote on this, and if I'm in the minority, I will still get on board with
I think
the board.
I think there's enough changes that happened anyways, right, Miranda, that we have to pass it by SAB and ProSAB anyways.
Well, unless
No.
we decide that we're not going to add the language around the pump track, because that was the only reason why we were going to ask ProSab to take a look at it. And if just putting on there, look into hiring a sustainability coordinator, but not actually putting on the responsibilities, then we wouldn't need to put it in front of ProSab either.
Okay, I mean, I'd be happy to make those, not add the bit that would require going to ProSab and move the bit about, just change the wording from hiring to
Right.
whatever the wording was put and voting on it tonight personally, but
Yeah, every time we kick something down the road to another meeting, something doesn't get done. And I'd kind of, Jesse, if it's okay with you, with the amendments we made to the language, I'd like to put this one to bed so we can actually work on some things and get started on this and incorporate this into every agenda going forward.
And into town and staff reports.
Yeah, and
I agree with you, Tom.
the reason why I think this is a really important thing for us to pass is because I think that it helps Miranda be successful. And ultimately, she is the one who is responsible for carrying out and executing what we're wanting as a town, as a board. And so without something like this, it's hard for her to know how to be successful, let alone actually do it. So I'm supportive of this as a concept. I want to retain our ability to review it every year. I want to retain our ability to bring new items out of left field if need be by two trustees or Billy. And I do want to have some support from Miranda and Nikki as needed on the pump track. And I am a subcommittee, and I am committed to championing and doing the bulk of the work on that. But I guess I don't want Miranda or Nikki to tell me to beat it, come back next year until the goals gets revised. If I have a question or if I have some need for, I don't know, something at the park, I don't know what I may or may not need from Miranda or Nikki on that. But I've talked to them a lot up to this point, and I don't want to have to stop talking to them, I guess.
Well,
Go ahead.
sorry, I just wanted to chip in real quickly on one particular point on this, Jesse. I come from an underprivileged background. My youth I spent a lot of time in neighborhoods that didn't have outlets like this. And I can tell you one thing from just the health of the community perspective, the more outlets that we have that are freely available to underprivileged children. I think you could appreciate this too, Mayor Billy. The healthier in general the entire community can be. And so I'm actually very pro pump track. For a number of reasons, but that's one big reason is just the health of the community in general. But I'm wondering if we can try to get this really encapsulated into a container that's digestible, like how much time we're going to use of Nikki's, how much time we're going to use of Miranda's. One thing is sure is that Miranda has fostered a culture of empowerment in her team. And we have seen this already. I just looked at the budget tonight. I'm super stoked about how much money has been saved since the beginning of the year. And I see that as efficiencies born from a good town culture. So to build in future efficiencies into this project, possibly is there a way we can build this into the living document in a way that's digestible? That we can say this, but no more than this will be spent, time, money, etc. I don't know if that's a way to get it in there to really promote this particular idea.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like I'm off and running with the pump track, and I want to know how is that relating to this document and Miranda and her time and Nikki as well. So, and because I don't know that, and because it's not clear to me, and I don't feel anybody's really answered that question, maybe Miranda can answer that question.
And before we pop it over to Miranda, I think it's of my opinion, and it would be my request, because as you stated, this document is just as much for Miranda and town staff than it is for us, right?
I think it's more for her, actually.
And to be successful.
Yes.
And it would be of my opinion that if something were to come to her that started to take time, more time than it felt like it was being helpful, and it was pulling her attention away from these goals, I think that's where we have to give her permission and town staff permission to raise her hand and say, is this of a priority compared to what you have me working on in your goals?
Absolutely.
I think that is on our behalf of, as the bosses, of good management, of empowering her to be able to raise, and town staff to raise their hands to say.
Totally agree. And that's why I don't know if the pump track needs to be on this list as a result of that answer. So because of the way that answer, and now I feel that perhaps I do want that pump track to at least be mentioned somewhere on this list. And if that's the case, then I would either invite you all to vote on it as is so we can move on, or that we continue and that we take it back to ProSAP for them to endorse that argument.
We can do both.
How so?
We can vote tonight and take it back to ProSAP.
Additionally, yeah, I like that idea too.
I don't think they're going to see anything on there that they're going to disagree with as written now.
Sure. I mean, but I would.
Because we just crossed out the pump track.
Completely.
Yeah.
When I walked over there a couple of minutes ago, we were still endeavoring.
Well, because we talked about because if we keep it in there, I mean, Miranda, I think it has to go to ProSab before
We
we.
can't approve it tonight.
Huh?
So we could approve it
So
tonight.
We are pushing it out.
We could take it off. We could approve it tonight. I can then go to ProSab and say, hey, guys, do you guys want to support, or do you guys want to make a recommendation to the BOT that they add some language to, and then if so, I come back in the next meeting and I say, hey, Nicole, can you and me champion putting on a change on this and add the pump track on there?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way Tom's right. We could do both.
Miranda, what do you think?
Yes, I feel like it's a little confusing to the community because the intention, I talked to Barb when we were just going to publish this in its entirety to the public and say these are the goals, and I would hate to say these are the goals and then 2 weeks later say just kidding, now these are the goals. So I would rather just wait. I guess the one thing I would say is, just speaking about pump track or really anything, like we're always going to be here to support and guide and give that feedback. I think what we're saying here is Nikki is not the pump track champion. And that's a bit of this, and I realize that that's missing here by not calling out the pump track, but really these were the goals of the Parks Department. And so, I don't foresee us not assisting with initiatives. Like, for example, solar, US Solar, Community Solar isn't on here, but it doesn't mean we're not going to work alongside SAB in those efforts. And so I think there are a lot of examples where town staff champions, but this is what you hold town staff accountable to, because these are the things grounded in the town staff work. I think everything here ties back to town staff more than it ties back to an advisory board or commission.
I like that. I'd like to make a motion.
Before you do that.
Yeah.
Attorney Mattson, is there,
Okay.
should the resolution be amended at all based off the conversation tonight?
I mean, that's difficult to say. I think it's fine. I mean, I think the wording generally fits, you know, it says next to 18 months, but you took that out. So maybe take that out of the title. Do you see where I'm talking about? It's a resolution of the Town of Nederland Board of Trustees approving August 2023, December 2024 strategic plan. Then it says the next 18 months, stabilize plan, grow revenue. So I would say take out from the resolution, amend it to take out the next 18 months. But the resolution also doesn't really talk about how you intend to use the document.
Okay, so making sure that we provide, if we were to approve tonight, then provide the language of how we are going to use the document.
Can't we just authorize,
want-
like, say if we go through those edits, we can authorize, I think was it you, me, and Miranda to make those like edits basically that are consistent with the draft we have, or can we, it's really just in the title, right?
Yeah, I mean, consistent with the edits that you made in the document.
Yeah, basically, I mean, deleting the next 18 months, from the title.
Right.
And then I'm just thinking, is there anything else in there that needs to be edited? I'd have to
No.
read it a little more carefully, but
There's nothing else. If you wanted to add to the resolution, which would probably be difficult to do just during the meeting, but if you want to move forward in approving this, I don't think there's anything else to change to the resolution.
title and then section 2, like the WIP.
Yeah,
next
but you can just
news.
say to be consistent with the title of the document as you amended.
Okay.
And that the
Changes made.
document itself has been amended in the meeting.
Those words need to be said. To be consistent with the titling. That's the wrong word. Title of the government. Title. To be consistent with the changes in the document made on August 15th, 2023. That sounds good. And then should I make those edits or Miranda or you?
The resolution?
Jennifer?
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to sign the resolution another day because I think we would take it back, Attorney Mattson,
Yeah,
right, and then
just-
sign, edit it and print it for you.
Yes. And I'll proofread it, but I don't think there's anything else that have to be changed except that little bit in section 2 and a little bit in the title. Great.
Is it possible, I mean, I think it would be clean, Trustee Sterling, can we just walk through these one more time and I'll accept them as we go to say like, or am I safe to just accept everything? Just so we have a clean document. I'm not sure the cleanest way to do it, but just to make sure everyone knows what I'm accepting before this becomes the final, what's published in the Mountaineer.
All right, let's do it. All right.
Push the button.
Don't push the button that Tom says. Approve all. We'll go one by one. Okay, so the first change is stabilize plan, grow revenue until December 2024. We're being explicit, naming to when this has the timeline. So
Accept.
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 The next one is that we've added the line guided by our town planning documents, and then the paragraph, we intend for this document to be reviewed every year by all the town boards to assess accomplishments and to add on any additional goals. However, more importantly, we want this to be a handing off document to new boards to help create consistency and continuity, something that the community has long lamented about, as new board members often bring new projects instead of focusing on finishing existing projects within the community that the community has long asked for.
Accept.
Okay, accept. We have removed the sustainability, the hiring or considering the analyze the benefits of hiring a sustainability coordinator for number 3, because we've moved that elsewhere. So go ahead and accept that. It's still there. There we go. Next, under objective 3.4, we have clarified that the sub-area plan is for the central business district. Accept?
Accept.
Number 7, the complete the Big Springs egress study by December 2024 has been moved under egress. So we can go ahead and accept that because it is elsewhere. Objective 4, we changed the language to say maintain and modernize the town's infrastructure to reduce public safety and health risks and improve the quality of life in our town. This originally said continue modernizing the town's infrastructure to reduce public safety risks and promote economic growth and improve the quality of life for our residents. So we moved economic growth into another, into the one that talked about growing revenue, and maintain and modernize the town's infrastructure was the new language.
Accept.
Okay. Under streets infrastructure, number 1, we have install a signalized crosswalk. This is merely updating that we actually get a signalized crosswalk. So let's go ahead and accept that one.
Accept.
Deal.
We'll take it. Next is, okay, so we moved emergency egress, a Big Springs egress study under, we created a new category called emergency egress development. So egress study is there in addition to secure the 3.5 million in external funding for the secondary bridge. Oh, I missed one too. Right above, it's under emergency preparedness. We are wanting to disseminate information to all homeowners regarding tax incentives, all the resources they can take or they can get by February 2024 instead of April 2024. Okay. We have striked out the explore the possibility. Yep. So Parks and Rec is staying the way that it was. We've moved sustainability into its own category under all the town responsibilities. And we did change a little bit of the language to say instead of hire, we said that we will further consider and analyze the benefits of hiring a full-time sustainability coordinator.
Yes, agree. Accept.
Under objective 5, we took out the economic growth from, I think it was objective 3, and just put it here, and that we really are wanting to have a focus on economic growth. So that line was put, or that phrase was put in there. Under objective 6, listen to the voices of our workers, residents, and property owners and implement changes to the Nederland Municipality Code. Again, this was a suggestion that we don't leave some of the voices out, and property owners are voices in that.
Yes. Agreed.
Okay. And
Was that clean, Miranda?
Yep.
and so now we have goals document.
So I am not on the right page. I move to approve Resolution 2023-41 approving the 2023 to 2024 strategic plan. And we will make the edits on the resolution to be consistent with the edits we made tonight on the strategic plan on the August 15th BOT meeting.
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Macy?
Trustee Severs,
Yes.
Trustee Mountain,
Yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahone,
Yes,
Trustee Corvalon,
Yes.
and Mayor Billy.
Yes.
Thank you.
we got unanimous.
Yay.
Mine is Eric.
Well, I think he'd have been for this, I'm guessing. Right on.
Tonight.
Yeah. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 9:10. Thanks.
Relieved that that's done. I just don't like to get in the habit of just, then we'll take care of it next time.
Welcome back. 9:12. And next thing on our agenda is our one and only discussion item, the ever popular short-term rental code amendment consideration. So let's see. Macy, I think you're the one who was gonna. Okay, go for it.
Sorry. Okay, so tonight, we're gonna be talking about short-term rental code amendment considerations.
Just a sec, we are muted. This room is muted. Can you let Macy know when she can unmute when it's time to start again?
You're unmuted.
Okay, cool. Sorry. Apologize.
It's okay. Okay. So it has been requested by the board that town staff review the code related to short-term rentals to identify areas in need of strengthening. Board and community members have previously provided suggestions regarding primary residence requirements, fire pit safety, a cap on licenses, and implementing a requirement that the home must be owned for a certain number of years before they can apply to convert to short-term rental. I have performed research and obtained feedback from various municipalities in Colorado about short-term rental regulations. Outlined in this aim are some considerations for the board regarding potential short-term rental code amendments. And then before I get too far into it, since each consideration has been broken up into a section, do you want me to review them all and then go over them individually with you guys, or like discuss them as we go and just review one at a time?
I think she's asking if we read the packet.
Yeah, indirectly.
Just for sake of time, instead of me reading through the
yeah,
whole thing
yeah.
and breaking it down, do you want to just go?
I feel I feel okay with us not reading the thing out loud.
So let's start with the primary residence requirement and discuss that in its entirety before we move on to the fire pit safety.
Yeah.
And if we can, mostly let's stick with clarifying questions. I want to keep it relatively general tonight and get a sense of get a sense of the board of what people do and don't want to make
Agreed.
movement on. So right now, though, if we could stay with clarifying questions as we move through, it'd be great. Try not to get into the weeds.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say thanks for pulling in the examples you did because they meant a lot. They were ones that I think are directly applicable. On the owner, I've got a point of view on the ownership. I mean, how do you want to do it process wise? Do you want to have people just ask questions at this point?
On the ownership, you mean on
Owner occupied or the category that's where the owner
I'm going to have
primary residence host president.
I think that would be fine for you to start with. I do want to just do one round robin here for sake of transparency before we start the discussion. I just want to have all of us talk about whether we own an STR in the town of Nederland, whether, if you look at questions before the board, whether we feel like we have a conflict of interest on this subject, on this topic, and whether or not we would recuse ourselves. And I'll go first. I don't own any short-term rentals in town or anywhere for that matter. I don't have any conflict of interest on this topic, and I don't feel the need to recuse myself. So if all of us could do that, that'd be great.
I've got only long-term.
Okay.
So I'm not conflicted.
Okay. So you're not recusing yourself?
I
Okay.
do not have any short-term rentals, so I'm not recusing myself.
Okay.
I don't have a conflict of interest.
Okay.
I don't currently, but I did have a short-term rental in Nederland, but I don't feel that I have a conflict of interest.
Okay. So you don't feel the need to recuse yourself? Okay.
I do, and I don't, and I won't.
Do just be specific so people can hear it.
I do have a short-term rental, and I don't feel I have a conflict of interest, and I do not intend to recuse myself.
Okay. Tanya?
I do not have a short-term rental in Netherlands. I do have one in another country. So I have some idea of what it entails to be a host. I don't think I have a conflict of interest. So there.
Great. Perfect. So thanks for doing that. And with that, Tom, yeah, you can pick whichever subject you want to talk about first. Ask questions about first. So Tom, if you want to go with ownership, if you have clarifying questions on that, now's a good time.
Yeah, I direct this to you. Essentially, it looks like people other towns have experienced this because they have the same pressures that we do. Is there any reason that we should be cautious about restricting it to people that are, restricting it to people that own the property and use it as a primary residence? Actually, I've got no question because essentially the table clarified all of this for me.
Okay.
So I'm really uncomfortable generally with two things. Number one, being taken over by outside investors who just come in and buy everything up and take stuff off the market. But I'm also uncomfortable with putting a numeric cap on it. I like this. I do generally like the ones that had percentages because that makes sense to me, and I think that gives us some guidance on which would work. And for the record, I think we've got 720 residences total to apply the percentage against. That's my understanding. Accurate so far?
The town currently has approximately 720 total housing units. So that means currently 8% of the current housing stock is rented as short-term rental.
Which leaves some room.
If so, according to the table and what other towns are doing, it seems like the lowest percentage I see here is 10%. And so yes, if we did go with a 10% cap, we would still be below that threshold.
Right. And then last question for me on the Class Bs, those are grandfathered.
Yeah, the ones that we have issued right now, they were issued prior to them being removed from availability. So
Okay.
they have their license because they had it before the Class Bs were revoked.
With the benefit of hindsight, how have those properties performed? Have we had issues with the Class Bs at all? Is there anything to be concerned about?
I have one client that has a Class B that I have had consistent issues with, and I'm going to be issuing his violation hopefully tomorrow. But with all the others, I don't have any issues with the Class Bs.
Okay, so we made a decent decision and there was no tremendous blowback.
Yes, I would say.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question? What happens when somebody gets a violation right now as the code stands?
So the first violation is a fine of $150. The second violation, let me pull up the application so I get it right.
Since there's been complaints about this property, is this the first violation or is this now getting into?
So it's not complaint driven, it's administratively driven.
Okay.
They're not submitting quarterly tax payments.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's been an ongoing issue with this particular license holder.
Can I just jump in? It's Miranda. Complaint-based is something that's evaluated, but code's pretty clear about the investigation and what we've seen today. And Macy, jump in if you feel otherwise. But when we get complaints, we're typically able to talk through it with the short-term rental owner to mediate that issue. And so complaints have never generated a violation. And this actually is the first time we will have moved forward with the penalty process, which is the first violation is a fee. And it is just because this STR owner has not followed the code in terms of submitting proper taxes or taxes in the time frame in which they need to be submitted.
And so to follow up with Trustee Corvalon's question, the first violation results in a $150 fine. The second violation results in a $750 fine. And the third violation results in the revocation of the license without the possibility of reapplication for 1 year and a fine of $1,500. Currently, the violations, the first two are just monetary based. Initially, the Planning Commission recommended that violations also include a time frame, as you see in the third violation, where they cannot reapply for 1 year. Initially, the second violation included a 6-month penalty of reapplication. So that's just something to consider while you're working with the Planning Commission, just on considerations and code amendments.
More clarifying questions?
Yeah, I've got, this is on a different section, Macy, but on requirement for emergency contact to be a local resident. I can absolutely see the logic in that. Has this been an issue that we've had to wrestle with so far?
So the more things that I'm hearing, and this is coming mostly from community member feedback, is that people who live in a residence who have lived there for a while and the house in close proximity or neighboring them sells and then is immediately converted to short-term rental, they don't receive notification that the house will be turning to short-term rental, and they are sometimes impacted by the operation of the rental. So I saw that in the presentation given by the CMCA that some towns do require the local emergency contact. And so that would require the short-term rental operator to establish relationships before operating. But I also, in thinking about this more, it's not included in the aim. So what if we required them, the short-term rental, to notify homes in a certain radius of the short-term rental by a letter, or, so that they're notified that way? And then you could also keep the local requirement emergency contact, but that's just another spin on notifying the neighbors, or like having that short-term rental reach out to the community to establish connections. Maybe we can require a notification process for new rentals coming in. I noticed that that was mentioned in a public comment that came in later today.
So right now, there is no such requirement, is what you
No,
think?
we do not require a short-term rental to notify anybody that they will be doing that type of operation.
No, I mean, if they're not on premises and they're turning the house over to somebody else and something gets out of hand and they're not reachable, we just have to live with it?
Well, I can't speak to that in particular, but what I can say is that whenever we have received a complaint, we are able to reach out to the community or the emergency contact or the license holder, and they have always been able to respond in a timely manner.
Okay, so we haven't had an issue with it.
I haven't. The reason that I brought that consideration forward was to try to have the short-term rental holder establish relationships within the community before operation. And so maybe requiring them to have a local emergency contact would help, but maybe notification via letter would also be a good way to go about that. And that's all coming from public feedback, from people who live next to them who wish they would have been notified. So yeah, again, all these are just recommendations, and you don't need to move forward on any of them.
You did research on a bunch of towns. Did this come up in any of the regulations? Did you see it in there?
I did. Let me see where it was in the presentation.
Colorado Springs, Crested Butte.
The city of Centennial also has a good neighbor document that they require short-term rental licensees to provide to the neighboring property owners.
Thanks for that.
It's on page 7 of the presentation.
Mhm.
Tanya was right, Mount Crested Butte and Colorado Springs both
Okay.
require a local representative.
So a question regarding having folks submit proof of residency quarterly with their occupational tax payments. If they can manipulate the system now and just kind of change on a whim, how couldn't they still technically, abuse even a quarterly submission?
I would think that would make it a lot more difficult. I would imagine it would make it really difficult on the driver's license. I don't think you could change it that frequently with the state.
Well, because wasn't what people were saying is that today they just put a sticker on the back that says this is my address.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so when I do get a sticker on the back, I ask them to also include the email confirmation from the state that the address change is taking place, because the state does ask them to just put a sticker on it. So it is kind of hard to tell if they just did it or if the state asked them. But if they provide me with an email about like confirmation of their visit with them, or I got a confirmation that the address has been changed, but please put the sticker on. So if I get that, then hopefully in 3 months, their new ID will have arrived. And when they send me their ID, it'll have the real short-term rental address on it.
Okay.
If it doesn't in 3 months, that's understandable, but hopefully by the next quarter, I'll see that new ID. And then hopefully that will never change and it will always have the same address, which will be the short-term rental address.
And I guess if it does change, then that's a flag.
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes,
gotcha.
yes, definitely.
All right.
It's Miranda. Just really quick, I do think though it would be recommended that it's all the primary license documentation, because not only loopholes about a license, but it's also voter registration. And we have heard rumorings of examples where people changed their voter registration to Nederland and then immediately changed it back to wherever they wanted it to be. So I think they need to submit a continuous cycle of both primary license documents.
Okay, so voter registration and driver's license. is
It's
what you're
not
saying.
just voter registration, it's an option. It's voter registration, motor vehicle records, or a specific tax documentation.
Okay. Okay.
Seems like quarterly is a bit much, since people file all their taxes once a year anyway. They'll bring this same thing back. I don't want to go over the top with it. Would you agree with that, Macy? Do you really feel you need a quarterly review?
It's hard to say, since I haven't done anything like this before. It's hard to know what I'll uncover as the documents come in, you know? They submit taxes quarterly already, so they're used to submitting
Good point.
documents to the town on a quarterly basis. And so I don't think it would be too much to ask them to include just some extra documents when they submit their tax payments. And of course, it could be reevaluated, but you could always decide not to ask them to submit quarterly and ask them to submit biannually or something.
Yeah, I want to give you the tools to do what you feel needs to be done to keep the train on the tracks.
Yes, I did worry about having to go through and check it. It does create a lot of extra work for me in the short-term rental world, which is already pretty busy. But I'm happy to do it. And yeah, I don't imagine it would be too much work for their end or my end, but it would definitely be something to be evaluated.
Okay. And the primary residence host not present is the biggest number of them. Which of these categories, if any, give you the most trouble? And where's the growth coming from?
I think it's hard to say which license type gives me the most trouble. It seems that certain short-term rentals attract more attention than others. Maybe based upon their neighbors, you know, and their neighbors' opinions or how they're impacting their neighbors, you know? But I've always been able to resolve any type of complaint with a license holder pretty easily, so I cannot identify any particular license type that gives me more trouble than any other.
Okay.
So one of the recommendations was to, potentially putting a requirement that they live there for 2 years, but that still doesn't help folks that have an existing license. Like this would be for new.
Right.
One of the letters that was written in was suggesting, well, what if you went back and you did an audit of all the existing licenses and looked at their tax documents? Was that at all anything that you heard from the other municipalities of them having done, like actually going through the process of an audit of existing licensees?
I have not actually heard of anybody doing this like primary residency check and like having the audit and having people resubmit to prove. I would definitely be happy to reach out and ask all the other municipalities and all the other clerks if they have a process like that in place. It just wasn't part of my initial outreach.
Macy, currently, when they renew, do they have to show their primary residence documents again?
Not upon renewal, just upon issuance of the license.
Ooh, definitely, I would advocate with renewal.
Mhm.
And it's annual renewals that we do.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that's where it was maybe the suggestion that we go to submit the proof documents quarterly.
Yeah, but that seems excessive, but at
Yeah.
least, I'm not opposed to it, but at least with the renewal, that should be.
I
So,
agree, Tanya.
I think a lot of people find loopholes for the system. I think I can tell in my neighborhood that these people aren't primary homeowners. Sometimes I wonder if we should just get rid of it all and just go just to the cap and leave it at that. But I don't know. That's probably not popular. But I am way into the owning the house 2 years before owning it because I think that way the people who own this house will start to get to understand mountain community and all the different things that we have going on with wildlife and fire danger and our town codes and all that. I think it's super important, and I wish we had done that from the beginning, because I think what happens and why we get people complaining is when people buy a house and don't have any ties to the community and so then the neighbor feels like offended, like, oh, you don't even want to get to know me, you're just a business, and now I'm mad because people are having fun on the deck and they're laughing and making a lot of noise, and I think if they lived there or at least had some ties to the community, it might help with some of the neighbor problems as well. So that's something I would really want to push for. And I definitely want to put a cap so that it's not endless. And I would be tucked into just getting rid of the whole primary stuff anyway. And I definitely want a fire ban on the fire pit.
Agreed.
Okay, we'll definitely get into that.
Oh yeah, sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
That's okay. That's okay.
She's like, let's just get her done. I know.
Yeah, since we're going around.
I don't disagree. Despite what I said earlier about caps, Tanya, I'd support you on this. I understand your logic.
No, we don't, yeah. And the beauty of the cap is if somebody builds a development that puts, 50 more houses in the neighborhood, then there's 5 more short-term rentals available.
If you do a cap based on percentage of housing stock, definitely, yes.
That's
because
what I'd like
then
it based on, yeah.
As the town grows, then the allowance for short-term rental does as well.
Yep.
And while I got the mic, there's something I would like to add. Right now we have a limit to 1 short-term rental per resident. I'd like to include that to 1 short-term rental per corporation as well. So just keep it fair. Because a corporation can be owned by different people, so they can have different people apply, and thereby having more than 1 per corporation does exist. But if we have it just 1 per corporation, doesn't matter who applies for it, then that would limit that to 1. I think is fair.
Okay.
If I could add to that, I like that a lot, Tanya, but if I could add to that, I would say 1 principal owner of the LLC per LLC per rental. That way people don't create shadow LLCs or corps and hide behind those in their purchasing.
I could see
You know
that
what I mean?
happening easily. Yeah, no, I like what you said, yes.
And it's so easy to create an LLC, just period.
Just go online, boom, I got one.
And so it's
Yeah,
like,
for sure. But the principal owner should be
Yeah.
identifiable. I mean, you can pierce the corporate veil pretty easily. It's not.
Yeah, because there's got to be
it's
a
on the
list.
registry. The Secretary of State's information.
That's why I
is
use
publicly
Nevada.
available. Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Wait,
It's
what'd you
hidden
say,
there?
Tom?
They could, there's a way that a lawyer could probably do that, but I don't know. I don't know if
Hmm.
I'm familiar with Nevada. In Colorado, it's very easy to find the chain of title.
Yeah, I would hope, yeah.
Are we
Any,
full
any,
in discussion now?
any more clarifying questions? Because I do want to go to public comment because I expect we might get
I
some.
wanted to ask a little bit about the history of this. It says in the summary, you know, that the BOT asked for town staff to look into this. Was that this current BOT or a previous BOT?
Yes,
It was
so we
me.
had trustee Corvalon and trustee Coombs Ismail.
Okay, so it wasn't necessarily the BOT, it was two members of the BOT, to clarify.
Okay,
Yes.
sure.
But then we have discussed this already once
Yeah.
as a group.
This BOT,
Sure.
and we asked it
And
to come back.
so we as a BOT did.
Yeah, we discussed it, okay.
What we
Yeah,
did.
and this BOT added the ability for an ADU to be a short-term rental last year.
Gotcha, which is cool.
Yeah, I think so.
What is the goal we're trying to achieve here with revisiting this code?
Tanya, you want to?
For me, the cap is really important. And for me, having the 2 years ownership is really important because of what I had said earlier. I saw it at least 3 times in just down the street from me. People bought the house, never lived there, instantly short-term rental, and it just felt just not that neighborly, and it didn't feel good to me. And some of those houses had problems with bears and fire pits unattended and problems with parking and et cetera, et cetera. Nothing serious, but I also just resented it that this is a $2 million house. It got sold and nobody lives there and it's just business. And it's raising the prices for everybody because that's how they can afford their mortgage, you know, and versus originally for me, short-term rental is for people who live in the community who want to rent their house, want to go live in a tent and make some money, or want to travel or are forced to travel and can make some money off of their number one asset that they own. And that's to me why short-term rental is super important. Plus for the economic boost it gives to our, so I don't want to ban it, but I do want to discourage people from thinking, oh, I can just come up to Ned and buy a house and rent it and it pays for my second house and I don't even have to have any ties to this community. So that's, for me, that was the big thing, the cap and the 2 year, having.
From a policy standpoint, I hate when you only have 720 structures. I hate to see anything taken off the market by a corporation.
Yeah.
I love bringing visitors in, but from a policy standpoint, I want our people to have a place to live. As much as I've enjoyed housing inflation, it's making it utterly impossible for some people to get in.
So could we say the goal is, there's a few goals that I heard just there. And one, I heard from you, Tanya, and tell me if this is accurate, to create and to encourage strong neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Strong relations
neighbors.
within neighbors, good neighborly relations is one. And then I heard from you, Tom, that is to protect availability of housing for people who want to live here. So those would be two pretty clear goals.
That's a big one for me, yeah.
Yeah, Trustee Mount and I have lived in Breckenridge and just seen all these giant empty homes with no lights on. While people are struggling if they're working at Fatty's, they can't get a place to live. So I think I've seen this in other towns, and it doesn't take much to tip the scales when you have a housing stock as small as we do. And
It's hard to-
Kayla hit earlier on the amount of we just don't have that many more building lots.
Yeah, I would agree with the lack of housing being, the crunch of housing being an issue. And I also have seen large scale syndications spun up specifically for Airbnb rental acquisition. Most of them are really high scale stuff, like in the middle of Savannah, Georgia, mansions, those sorts of things. So they're building experiences, but I could easily see that also be to be pointed toward a portfolio sort of gathering. However, how do we determine that the LLC applying for the Airbnb license is just a legitimate individual who wants to protect himself legally versus a large scale operation like that would be kind of predatory in the sense that they would be taking over large swaths of property?
Yeah, I think we got a taste of it 2 years ago when the mine came in and started buying up, or not buying up, but taking every rental property they could get their hands on. They're currently wound down operations, but that could happen again. And if you bring 40 people in and you start to take over the housing stock, you've changed the percentages pretty significantly with just one corporation. And then as a property owner, I saw that they hold us a stick on property owners as well. But I think that if somebody is renting, and 45% of us do, is my understanding, you can price somebody out really easily. And I hate to see that one corporation be able to do that. But you're right, that as a property owner, I like using LLCs and corporate structures to make sure that if somebody slips, I'm going to lose the house, but not everything.
I'll look into that Nevada idea.
Okay, fair enough.
Thanks for that. One real quick question as well to kind of clarify. Tanya, you brought up a couple of times fire pits, which to me, that's a very alarming idea that people who are unsophisticated with regard to the fire safety issues that we are under here would be coming to the community completely blind to our needs around that safety issue. So I'm trying to wrap my head around that particular part of it. Do you think trying to mitigate that particular risk would be first and foremost in the list of
I think it's so easy to
regulation?
do, to just eliminate fire pits. Well, I mean, you could have maybe a gas one, but wood fire pit, so easy, just put that in the code. I don't think it's gonna like ruin anybody's sales. People are still gonna rent the house. It's like an added thing. It's not what makes people rent a house. So that
Yeah.
I would think for sure put it in. Obviously, we debate it, we bring it to the public, all that, but I don't see it being contentious myself, but maybe it is. I don't know.
One, I like that. And then one idea that I had possibly, Macy, is I know that you have the ability to gather the listing data of all of the listings in town. Maybe there's a mandatory bolded language in each listing about absolutely no fires on the property outside of the use of a fireplace inside or something along those lines. I don't know if that's possible, but might be an idea.
Right. I would think it would start with a code amendment before it trickles down into the listings.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, because in order for me to require it to be in their listing, it would need to be in our code.
Okay.
Mhm.
That might be something we can think about.
So on the topic of fire pit safety, the city of Idaho Springs did ban them from short-term rentals in town. So you can ban them. You could also require that short-term rentals that have fire pits must disclose that information in their application. And then they will be required to provide their guest with additional educational information and strict expectations regarding the fire pit operation and safety. But then again, you have like the host not present license. And I mean, if you're worried about them with fire pit safety, maybe you're not sure they're gonna be following the strict expectations. So it might be smarter to ban them. This isn't included in the aim because I didn't have time to go far down this path, but the town of Oak Creek mentions burning permits in their code. So that would be in collaboration with the fire department, and I don't know enough about burn permits. I need to do some research on that, and so maybe you could require the guests to acquire a special burn permit if they were going to be burning, and that would be approved by the fire department. But again, that would be a collaborative process with them, and I'm not sure what that entails, and that was just something I just tipped the iceberg on, and I just really didn't have time to dig into it, but I wanted to mention it.
I'm guessing that would make the fire department should have to inspect the pit and be like, oh yeah, this is like, you know, in the middle of a rock, concrete, gravel area that could never start a fire and et cetera, et cetera. To me, it's not even worth it. It's too much trouble. Just,
I
for me, I
agree
would
with
just
you.
ban it. It's not worth the
Yeah.
risk. But
I mean,
that's just me.
is there a resident fireman, John, do you think of complete ban would be out of line?
Well, and specifically, solid-based ban, or are we banning gas fires as well?
No, just open.
Just, right,
Yeah,
okay.
I think,
That's
yeah.
a good clarification, Nicole. I would actually have to defer that question to Andrew Jocelyn. I think he would probably be the most qualified to answer it. From a personal perspective, any Airbnb listing that I ever owned always had absolutely no fires outside of the structure allowed ever. And that's a simple thing. It's not a big ask. People, I think most people across the nation have heard the news about Marshall.
Yeah.
So it's an easy, requirement for me. But
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, I didn't see that as non-commonsensical, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't see why personally that shouldn't be.
Anytime there's a fire pit and alcohol in a pile of wood, throwing one more log on, it seems logical.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think like the chimenea or the, the gas powered, furnaces, I've heard people have had good luck with those, but I don't know. I kind of even question that. So.
Yeah, it could be lethal so fast as we're seeing, and we're surrounded by woods.
I'd like to, so it's 10 till 10. I'd like to hear what the public thinks. Because let's try not to, I mean, I think we're all feeling good that the fire ban deserves a lot more scrutiny and likely a decision or an amendment. But so we will dig into that when we do. But in the public, I'm gonna open this up to public comment. Anyone have public comment on STR amendments? I will ask to keep it to 3 minutes because we only got 10. Thanks.
Just as information, in the town of Nederland, you would have to adhere to, first of all, Boulder County's fire regulations. And they get a red flag or this, no burning, this. So it starts there. If the town wanted to put an extra layer on top of that for residents inside town limits, I suppose you could do that. You could have an ordinance, but basically you are under the guise of whatever Boulder County deems as their fire level. And you can talk to Ed LeBlanc about that when he gets back. He's in Oregon right now fighting a fire. And, I think people up here, I was going to say aren't stupid, but we are stupid when it comes to fire. So the more education, the better. Yeah.
Thanks, Kayla. Any public comments from the folks online? If not, I'll bring it back to board. What we just need are nods of 4. We already cover. If you go to page 128 of the packet, at the top of the questions before the board, we already covered the first bullet about conflicts of interest. Was the BOT. To me, I think the one we would go to next is the 4th bullet, and then from there go back to the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th. Does the BOT instruct town staff to perform more research on any of the recommended code amendments? Are there any STR code amendments that the BOT would like to prioritize?
One that I would question personally, that I would maybe like to look back on and get a bit of a, survey on, is the 2-year residency requirement. I don't think there's a problem with somebody who knows the community and who is a good neighbor and who will ask the other neighbors around them I don't think that's I think that's a good ask to be a good neighbor. However, there are some people who have just recently moved to the community and absorbed a very big mortgage. And we're coming up on a potential recession. I mean, nobody knows. I don't have a crystal ball, but we could be looking at some potential mass layoffs and some hard times economically. In order to possibly preserve the folks who could be highest at risk of default on their mortgage, there could be a possibility of being maybe a little flexible on that. If there's town interest, I think the 2-year requirement makes sense from a very common sense standpoint. However, from an economic standpoint, looking at where we're at right now, I think it could put some households at risk. So I'd like to maybe revisit that. But that would be everything else, I think.
John,
Why don't you
is there
just,
someone
go
you're
ahead.
thinking of that's a primary homeowner that rents their house
I
out
know
on the
you
weekend?
think.
No, well, no, I
I know
asked
people who
everybody
rent
in
their
the
house
last
out
2
on
years who
weekends.
bought in Sunnyside picked up those houses for almost $1 million. I mean, that's a huge nut to hatch, and many of them are very young. So a single job loss of a dual income family could put that particular household at risk, I think. I could be wrong about that. I don't know anything about their salaries. I don't know anything personally that gives me a strong indication, but there's a tingling sense that I have about this, that it could be something that we could put out to the community so we can get a broader sense of who may feel at risk by us mandating that.
Well, for sure, this definitely all has to go out to the community. I appreciate your thoughts. I guess I just am jaded thinking, oh, these are just people, not the people you're talking about. They actually live in town, but people who just buy the house and then put it as a short-term rental, the next week.
Sure.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
prevent that. I don't want to
Understand.
hurt the person who rents their house out on the weekends when they go camping. I wouldn't want to hurt that. So yeah, it's a tough one.
So it sounds like there might be some reservation on the requirement to own the home for X years before STR. Any other ones that draw reservations from folks?
Well, just to clarify, but in that situation where we would still require them to live in their house for 2 years, they get hit economically, they want to rent out their house, they're still the primary resident.
That's a good point, Nicole. I guess maybe we could ask that question: if a person had to vacate and turn their home into a short-term rental,
But have to turn their home into a short-term rental?
or they would have the option, let's put it this way, to vacate permanently and turn that place into a full-time short-term rental. Would that fall under the umbrella of this particular restriction? I guess that's a question. Say the scenario is, I don't know, family sickness or something like that required somebody to leave for an extended period of time. So they weren't going to be in the house for over 6 months of the year. Something along those lines. Not just financial hardship, but some reason for having to like move back in with mom and dad in Minnesota or something along those lines. I guess I'd like to know how restrictive we're going to be around that 2-year must be in the house. Would they be full-time in the house for 2 years prior to
No, they
even
have to
being
own
able to
it.
list?
They have, yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think what we could do on that one, so that one seems to be one with reservations, and I think you got some good logic there for reasons that folks things would change for them. So I don't know if town staff needs to perform more research on that, or if the attorney does, on just how we would look at that, for sake of special circumstances or something. But let's just say at the moment, that one is kind of one with reservations. Are there any other ones with reservations?
I don't have any reservations, but I would like to present a consideration of potentially raising the fees for STRs so that it could be a larger source of revenue for the town.
In fees, do you mean the occupation tax rate or the application fees?
Any fees that are available to the town through the allowance of STRs, I feel are advantageous, and I feel the fees are low right now, and I would like to actually see it be a significant revenue line item for the town.
Yeah, I like the occupational tax idea a lot. I mean, a multiplier of maybe even 4 or 10 times what it is right now.
That might have to go to a ballot measure, so.
One will, the tax issue will.
Yeah.
The application fees, that could be done on the fee schedule. It would have to be for 2024.
Yeah.
But we could definitely look into that.
Could that be a regular renewable fee, like a annual fee or a quarterly fee or something?
Yeah,
along
so
those
the
lines, and not have to go to a ballot measure?
The application fees will not go to the ballot measure.
Yeah,
but
application fees are just like,
What
permit.
about a renewal fee?
That would be an amendment to the fee schedule in 2024,
Not a
done
vote.
administratively, presented to you for approval, of course.
But no, the popular vote would be an occupational tax.
Yeah,
would
it
have
was
to go
just
to a
actually
ballot.
raised last year.
Yeah, it'd probably. Yeah, I mean, so occupancy, I'm sorry, taxes would be ballot measures.
Mhm.
All the other fees are things that would just involve amending STR code. And
So we could
changing
just make
fee
a really
structure.
high fee and make it so you have to pay it every year, right?
Yeah, so you do pay an annual renewal fee. When you first apply for your license, you pay a fee of $150 to get the license, and then you renew it once a year, and when you renew, you pay $75. I know that there are fees listed in the presentation for the 3 municipalities, and I'm happy to perform more research and see what other fees look like in other towns.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be open to 10xing those fee amounts.
So
I could real quick make a motion to extend the meeting. I don't think we need much time. We just need to get nods on these last 4 bullets. But I'd like to extend the meeting until 10:15. This is our last item for the night.
Second.
Lacy?
Okay. Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Severs,
No.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
15 minutes, yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Oh, yeah.
and Trustee Mountain.
No.
Okay,
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for the
so yes.
persistent no votes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. So this would be under the 5th bullet, additional STR code amendments that the BTO is interested in learning more. So if we could, have not been presented, so the fee would be something to work on.
Absolutely, I will.
I don't, let's not drill into numbers right now, but,
Yep.
I would also like to suggest that we look at when they renew of resubmitting documentation. And also, yeah, so that we can try to hopefully catch anybody that may be abusing the system.
And would we just revoke their license if we found out they had been?
No, I mean,
That would be up to you guys to decide if you wanted to go down the route of issuing violations if I came
Yeah.
across something, or if you just wanted to.
Absolutely.
It's up to you
Yeah.
guys how you wanted to
So
handle that.
for
so
what-
that would be for additional STR code amendments. And I think for both town staff and legal to look at would be, penalties
Mhm.
and just, yeah. Any other specifics around the list? Well, actually, since we're on the last bullet, any other additional STR code amendments not listed in the?
Yeah, limited it to one corporation with one primary owner. Is that how you said it, John? John had a good way of saying it.
So,
Yeah, sorry. I think that captures it pretty well. I think one primary owner or manager per LLC per rental.
Per rental, yeah. So that one person can't hide under either multiple LLCs or, yeah.
Yeah, or be like the principal partner in a, syndication or something like that.
So that's an addition for both town staff and Jennifer town staff initially to learn more about, or get more specific.
When do we want to revisit this? Or when do we want to try?
Just a sec, let me get through, I'm sticking to the bullets. We're not going to set a date for that tonight, actually. Well, we can try, but depending on what we do here, I think it's more better that they let us know how much time they need later. Uh, Any other new additional STR code amendments?
Just real quick, Miranda, will there be things that come out of the housing study that might inform this STR amendments?
Not really. I mean, we didn't focus too specifically on short-term rentals.
Right, and that's why I was trying to recall in that list of items to prioritize. STRs weren't really in that, right?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, make sure.
So, do you need any more guidance on?
The planning commission, do we want to involve them? One of the
Yeah,
questions.
I was actually, yes, I mean, we can go ahead to go to that bullet. I was trying to stick to. I think it's a no, well, in my opinion, yes, I think on some of these
Here.
things, there's no, that is just what would need to be done because this falls under their.
I nod.
I nod for the need for the PC to look at some of these things, yeah. Yeah,
Oh, good for you.
you don't have to read the packet. I guess does. Another nods on PC. Yeah, okay. Got 4. And then Miranda and Macy, what else do you need from us really on the 4th bullet?
Can you clarify on the PC when you said you want the PC to look at some things? Like, I think to me, it seems cleanest just to bring this same aim to the
Yep.
planning commission and say, what do you think? But am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, and I'm sorry, that is
Okay.
perfect.
I would like to have those goals that I recapped and in the summary posted.
Can I ask for clarification if you guys are supportive of implementing a fee for late license renewals?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
And 10x it.
You have a nod of 10.
Yeah.
Are you guys okay with stating those goals in the summary that I mentioned?
What goals I'm speaking? What do you mean?
Neighborhood.
Strengthening neighbor cohesion, neighbor relations, neighborliness.
And
Yes.
increasing
And
housing.
availability, yeah, maintaining availability of housing for locals.
Okay.
Yes,
So to put a
definitely.
policy frame around it.
Yeah,
Like
Yeah,
every
love it.
tree we get
this
to.
is the goal, yeah.
I like it.
That sounds great. Any other, what else? What else do you need clarity on, Miranda and Macy?
I think this is a really good start, and I'm excited to sit down with the planning commission and kind of get their recommendations on this. They were the ones who initially put this ordinance in front of the board, so I know that they have some historical knowledge and they'll have some good recommendations. So I'm excited to just get working with them, and I appreciate your time and all your consideration tonight and just your openness and just, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Macy. One other bullet. Do we direct staff to work with the town attorney as needed on amending this code, as there will be amendments?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's got to be legal in the end, and it has to fit our statutory powers.
Right, yeah. That's correct.
One other quick question, do we have a good neighbor guidelines policy
We
with our STR process?
Yes, it's included in the application and the renewal application.
Okay,
So
good.
they do, there's a little thing they sign off
I
on.
would like it if that could be a part of this review as well.
Okay, the document itself.
Yes.
Okay, no
Yeah.
problem.
Good idea.
Thanks.
So like people have to, when they come up for renewal, they have to re-sign the document?
Yeah, and I would like for all of us to look at it and review it and be familiar with it and see if we like it as is, or if we like to make some changes perhaps, just have it be refreshed and brought before us again.
I think
If
that's a
it's,
great
if it's
idea.
part of our policy, and it's essentially aligned with that goal of, I mean, it's in the title, be a good neighbor. And, I'd like to see it ultimately more broadly applied than just STRs.
Well, the work that's being done for education for the tourism management, I think there's a big component, educating visitors on what to do when they're here.
Yeah.
I think that is a perfect space
Yeah.
for that to lead into
Definitely.
and have more of a prominent feature.
I love it.
So
Cool. And as for time frame when we come back to this, which I appreciate you asking, do you want to give us an estimate, or Miranda, do you guys want to just regroup and come back to us later and give us an idea of how
No.
much time you need?
I think we're gonna need to talk to the planning commission, and they usually like to do a couple rounds, so I'm just not sure we can give you that timeline tonight.
That's what I figured. Sounds
What
good.
about an executive session? Is that something that maybe could we have one in conjunction with planning commission, or no? Since don't they need to know about things like that?
Maybe once things get more specific and it gets looked at by town staff and the lawyer, then I think we'll get clarity on the need or lack of need for that.
Yeah, if there's some risks or liabilities we need to know about, then it would be suitable. But other than that, I think it's premature.
I agree.
Okay.
Do you have what you need from us?
I think so.
Great. Thanks. That is it for things on the agenda for the evening. Any other business? Any motions for adjournment?
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Macy?
Mayor Billy,
Yes.
Trustee Mountain,
Yes.
Trustee Corvalon,
Yeah, yes.
Trustee Sterling,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Mahold,
Yes.
and Trustee Severs.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The meeting is adjourned at 10:08 PM.
Thanks everyone for your time. Appreciate it.
Good night.